Raina toyed with a straw in her iced tea, eyes darting to the door every so often. David arrived, looking both intrigued and concerned. "You sounded spooked on the phone. Everything okay?" "Not exactly," Raina said, leaning in. "I've stumbled onto some files. Tapes, actually, that reference September 11th. There's talk of controlled demolitions, holograms, wild stuff. But it's on official city stationery, official seals." David's eyebrows shot up. "Wait, from Millbridge? You're telling me our little city was involved in a cover-up about 9/11? "I know how it sounds," Raina said, lowering her voice. She pulled out a few still images she'd printed from the digitized tapes, discreetly sliding them across the table. David studied them, face growing paler by the second. "These markings. They look legitimate," he muttered. "But for them to be in Millbridge, are you sure they're not fakes?" That's what I kept telling myself. But the more I dig, the more I find references to an operation codenamed Cover, where local officials collaborated with federal agencies to ensure the official narrative remains uncontested. Former Mayor Robert Grimes is mentioned by name. David whistled softly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Grimes was always a bit shady. Rumours said he had connections in Washington, though nothing was ever proven. People thought he'd use those connections to secure federal grants for local projects. But to be involved in something like this? Raina nodded. "I need your help verifying some of this. My boss at the archives knows nothing, or so he claims, but I don't trust anyone there. There's also this guy, Donovan, who was on the finance committee. I can't find a trace of him after 2005. It's like he vanished." David scribbled notes in a small pad. "I'll dig, but you have to promise me something. Be careful. If this is real, people won't hesitate to shut you up." They agreed to keep their conversation secret and parted ways. Back in her office, Raina discovered a sealed envelope slipped under her locked door. Inside was a single note. "Stop what you're doing. It's bigger than you. This is your only warning." Her stomach turned. She had no idea who sent it, but the message was crystal clear. Part of her wanted to run, leave the tapes alone and pretend she never found them. Another part, fueled by indignation, urged her to stand firm. She recalled the intangible weight of those tapes, their potential to rewrite history, or at least expose a hidden piece of it. Could she really walk away? That night, David called. "I found something," he said, voice trembling with excitement. "A payment record from 2002, authorised by Mayor Grimes for a contract to a Pinnacle research group. The weird part is that this group specialised in advanced imaging technology. It doesn't make sense for a small city to hire them. There's no public record of any imaging project here." Advanced imaging technology. The word hologram from those tapes echoed in Raina's mind. So the city might have funded part of a hush-hush technology test? "It's possible," David responded. "But there's more. Grimes personally accompanied federal agents to some demonstration, according to an old newspaper mention, though the article is vague on what it was about. I'm still digging, but it aligns with the theory that they were showing off or testing some high-level technology." Raina thanked him, her pulse racing. She spent the next hour pacing her apartment, phone in hand, before deciding she needed fresh air. The moment she stepped outside, she noticed that same black SUV creeping along the curb. Its tinted windows were rolled up, the license plate partially obscured by dirt. When she made eye contact, it sped away. The next morning, she arrived at the archives to find Dr. Gwenther waiting by her office. "Ms. Bennett, I need to speak with you," he said. His usually affable demeanour was replaced by something cold and formal. "We've received a complaint. Someone reported you'd been accessing restricted materials without authorization." Raina's throat went dry. "Restricted? These were just mislabeled boxes. I'm the archivist. It's my job to catalogue and review them." He sighed. "I understand, but the complaint specifically mentioned tapes that require federal classification clearance. Are you aware of such materials?" She forced her expression into one of wide-eyed confusion. "I've never heard of that. Are you sure it's not a mix-up? The box I found was unlabelled or mislabelled." Dr. Gwenther looked uncertain, but there was caution in his eyes. "Let's proceed carefully. I've been told we have to surrender any suspicious or unidentified items to an external review team by the end of the week." An external review team. That would mean the tapes would be whisked away to some black hole, never to be seen again. For a moment, Raina considered revealing everything to Gwenther, but the note's warning played back in her mind. She decided to pretend ignorance. "Of course, I'll gather everything I found," she said. "If I come across anything questionable, I'll let you know." She spent the rest of the day discreetly transferring the digitized files onto multiple flash drives. If the original tapes disappeared, she wanted backups. By early evening, her nerves were frayed. She checked her phone to see a text from David. "Need to see you. Big update." They met in a deserted park by the river. Dusk was settling in, and warm streetlights cast shaky reflections on the water's surface. David, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face, had an almost conspiratorial look about him. "I connected with a friend at the county records office," he said, voice hushed. "There's a sealed set of documents referencing a special council directive, signed by Grimes. The directive was about relocating or archiving sensitive federal materials in exchange for federal development grants. The city essentially got hush money, and guess what else? Donovan was the liaison. After leaving city council, he somehow joined a consulting firm in Washington. No trace of him after 2005 is a cover. He's not vanished. He's just operating under a different identity." Rayna's eyes widened. So the city knowingly stored these tapes, the ones referencing September 11th conspiracies, in exchange for funding. Why? David shrugged. Maybe to keep them off the radar in a nondescript place, overshadowed by bigger cities' archives. Or maybe they were planning to destroy them but never did. A sense of vindication mixed with dread. So far, everything lined up. The hush-hush contract, the hidden tapes, the reference to advanced imaging or holograms that might have been tested. It still felt surreal, but piece by piece the puzzle was forming a coherent, if horrifying, picture. "You have to go public," David urged. "This is bigger than Millbridge, but we need more than tapes. We need someone who was part of the operation, an eyewitness, a whistleblower, or else it's just speculation." Rayna knew he was right, but who could she approach? The only living link seemed to be Grimes and Donovan. She had no idea where to find either. "I'll try to find contact info for Grimes," she said. "If I get him to talk." "Then we both better watch our backs," David finished grimly. They parted ways, each consumed by the weight of what they now carried. Rayna returned to her car, once again noticing the black SUV parked nearby. This time its headlights flared to life as she approached. Terrified, she hurried into the driver's seat and sped away, the SUV following at a distance for several blocks. Eventually it turned off onto a side street, leaving her shaken but unharmed. In the quiet of her living room, Rayna laid out every clue. Grimes, Donovan, the sealed directive, the tapes referencing controlled demolitions and illusions, the hush money from federal sources. Something dark was brewing, a conspiracy that had lain dormant for years, never meant to be exposed. In that moment, she understood the gravity of her choices. If she pushed forward, she risked her reputation, possibly her safety. But if she didn't, the tapes might vanish forever, and a piece of the truth, whatever it might be, would remain buried. She clenched her fists, determination warming her veins. One way or another she would see this through. 3 days later, Rayna managed to track down a lead on Robert Grimes. He was rumoured to be living quietly on the outskirts of a neighbouring county. Under the pretence of researching an article for the Millbridge Herald, she convinced him to give her a brief interview. She didn't mention the tapes, not yet. On a grey Saturday afternoon, she drove out to meet him. His home was a modest ranch-style house surrounded by a chain-link fence. No glimmer of the ambitious mayor remained in the chipped paint or overgrown lawn. Rayna knocked on the door, half expecting no answer. But a moment later the door cracked open to reveal an older man with stooped shoulders and weary eyes. "You must be from the newspaper," he said. "Come in." The interior was dim, smelling faintly of old coffee and dusty carpets. She followed him into a small living room, where he motioned for her to sit on a worn sofa. "Mr. Grimes, thank you for agreeing to speak with me," she began. "I'm working on a piece about notable past mayors of Millbridge and their contributions, especially around the early 2000s. He coughed, a raspy sound. "Contributions. That's a charitable word. I did what I had to for Millbridge, but people never understood." Rayna leaned forward, deciding to take a calculated risk. "Mr. Grimes, were you aware of any special agreements between the city and certain federal entities around 2001 or 2002? He fell silent. His expression turned grim. "I don't know who you've been talking to," he said slowly, "but that's classified information. Has been for years." Taking a breath, Rayna pressed on. "Does it have anything to do with the official narratives around the events of September 11th? His eyes flared with a mixture of anger and fear. You have no idea what you're getting into, he stood abruptly. Interview's over. I'm sorry. She stood too, rummaging in her bag. What if I told you I've seen tapes? Documents referencing something called Operation Cover, tying Millbridge officials to the concealment of contradictory evidence, technical diagrams, references to hologram technology. Grimes's entire posture stiffened. His shoulders locked, and he stared at her with a mixture of shock and resignation. You found them, he whispered. They told me everything was destroyed. That was part of the deal. Rayna's heart pounded. So it's true. The city was used as a repository for the real details of September 11th. He sank into his armchair, head in his hands. Not just 9/11, that's the big one, but there were other hush-hush projects. Federal agencies needed small, out-of-the-way places to store certain records. In exchange, we got federal investment, new roads, expansions to our industrial park. Everybody was happy, or so I thought. Then, one day, they said they'd destroyed all the sensitive materials. Rayna showed him a still image from the tapes. His face drained of colour. I thought I'd buried this part of my life, he murmured. Those tapes detail preliminary engineering reports that suggested the towers didn't fall the way the 9/11 Commission stated. Some reports even mentioned projected illusions, the possibility that the second impact was partially orchestrated with advanced imaging to ensure maximum psychological impact. It was madness, but they wanted it suppressed. His voice shook as he continued. I never believed it entirely. But the men who came around, they were serious. Federal badges, some from agencies I'd never heard of. They said if we went along, we'd be doing our patriotic duty. Rayna's skin prickled. And Donovan? Grimes nodded. He handled most of the finances. He dealt with them directly. After I left office, he vanished into the system. I suspect with a new identity, courtesy of the same agencies. She felt a pang of both triumph and dread. Here it was, living confirmation that her discovery was no hoax. I'm going public with this, she said. I have digital backups. I can't... Before she could finish, the door burst open. 2 men in dark suits rushed into the living room, guns drawn. Federal agents, one barked. Stop what you're doing, hands where we can see them. Time seemed to slow. Grimes trembled, arms raised. Rayna dropped her phone in terror. What do you want? She managed to choke out. The taller agent stepped forward. We're seizing all classified materials. That includes anything related to the tapes you have. Hand them over. Rayna's mind raced. She had left the tape secured in her home safe, but she did have a flash drive in her purse. If these agents confiscated it, they might erase her only leverage. Her eyes darted to Grimes, who stared at her silent, guilt-ridden. A spark of courage ignited within her. These tapes prove a massive cover-up. You can't just... The second agent interrupted with a snarl. We can and we will. Your naive attempts to expose national security secrets end here. Just then, another figure appeared at the doorway. David. He had followed Rayna out of caution. Holding up his phone, he said, Smile, gentlemen. You're on a live stream. The agents hesitated, glancing at each other. David had the camera rolling, broadcasting to an online platform. If you do anything rash, it's all on record, he said, his voice wavering but resolute. For a tense moment, nobody moved. Rayna's eyes locked on the men's firearms. Finally, the taller agent lowered his gun. We'll be back, he growled, turning to leave. The other followed, glaring at David's phone with unmasked fury. Grimes let out a shuddering breath as they disappeared. That was... They'll try again, Rayna said shakily, retrieving her phone from the floor. But now we have some of this on camera, and we have your testimony. David ended the live stream. We had about 20 people watching, he said. Not much, but enough to prove there's something going on. Grimes stood, his face etched with fear. I'm done hiding. If they're onto me already, I might as well help you. Over the next hour, Grimes recounted more details. He explained how, shortly after September 11th, federal representatives approached small to mid-sized cities with an offer: store or assist in handling classified documents to keep them off the beaten path. In exchange, these cities would receive federal grants, infrastructure upgrades, or other perks. Millbridge had been a perfect candidate due to Donovan's connections in Washington. Those tapes were never meant to be found. They made sure only a handful of people knew. The day I left office, they told me it was taken care of, Grimes explained, voice trembling. Rayna and David exchanged glances. The story was bigger than they'd ever imagined. We need to go public in a controlled way, David said. If we just upload everything online, it might get taken down or discredited as fake. We need reputable sources to see this. They planned a strategy. David would prepare an investigative series, using Grimes's on-the-record statements, plus the digitized tape segments. Rayner would preserve multiple copies, hidden with trusted contacts. They would also contact a national journalist, someone with a large platform. That way, even if Millbridge's local authorities tried to bury the story, the national media might pick it up. Grimes insisted they not reveal his exact location for now. He feared immediate retaliation. "But I'll do an audio interview," he offered. "I owe you that much. I owe the country that much." 3 days passed in a tense blur. David scrambled to verify the tape's authenticity through external experts, who confirmed the city seals and official signatures were legitimate. Rayner lived in constant fear, every night punctuated by mysterious vehicles passing her apartment. Sometimes she'd catch a glimpse of men in suits scouring the area. Finally, with every precaution in place, David published the first installment of an exposé on the Millbridge Herald's website, complete with snippets from the tapes, anonymized images, and a teaser of Grimes's testimony. The internet reaction was explosive. Fierce debates erupted on social media, some people dismissing it as nonsense, others proclaiming it the biggest government scandal of the century. Within hours, mainstream news outlets began to call. The city archives were put on lockdown. Agents likely swarmed the building searching for the physical tapes. But Rayner's digital backups were safely distributed. Even if the original materials vanished, the evidence still lived on. In the final weeks that followed, official statements poured out from Washington, dismissing the tapes as unverified and claiming that any local official believing in them was misguided. A new wave of conspiracy theories sprang up, questioning every detail. As time went on, the event might have become just another footnote in the endless swirl of controversies. But for those who listened closely, those open to the possibility that the official narrative might be incomplete, the story of the tapes never quite faded. Rayner left her position at the archives, having sacrificed her peace of mind. Yet she felt a strange sense of purpose. She, David, and Grimes had torn a rift in the carefully woven tapestry that concealed the truth, or at least a piece of it. The secret had breathed air, and no matter how many official statements tried to suffocate it, someone, somewhere would always remember what was revealed. Grainy VHS footage of a conspiracy that upended everything the world thought it knew about that tragic day. And maybe that was enough. Sometimes the mere hint of an alternative story is enough to keep the embers of inquiry burning. In the end, as Rayner packed up her apartment and prepared to start anew in another city, she reminded herself of one crucial fact. Truth, once uncovered, can be attacked, ridiculed, and buried in an avalanche of denial, but it can never truly be destroyed. And so long as she remembered that, there was hope that one day the whole story might finally truly come to light. Thank you for tuning in to this 4-part story. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and the current time, and don't forget to subscribe to Sleep Theories if you enjoyed this tale. Stay curious, and remember, sometimes the biggest truths are hidden in the smallest places. Hello, and welcome to the fourth protocol. Before we dive in, please comment where you're tuning in from and the current time also. Don't forget to subscribe to Sleep Theories for more immersive tales. Now let us enter the year 2025, where old secrets refuse to remain buried. Rhea Calder, once a top cybersecurity analyst, is now a disgraced whistleblower, barely scraping by. Out of the blue, she's hired by Miles Kenner, a Department of Defense liaison, to digitize dusty Cold War documents at Site 12 in the Nevada desert. The pay is unusually good, and the facility feels like a relic, its corridors lined with filing cabinets, ancient tapes, and flickering lights. On her first day, Rhea sifts through routine memos, but references to Operation Paperclip catch her eye, along with a cryptic term, Protocol 4. A locked partition on the computer database draws her deeper. She cracks its encryption and finds blacked-out reports mentioning Nazi scientists, eugenics, and remote psychogenic influence. The more she uncovers, the darker it gets. Kenner warns her not to delve too far. He insists these are just relics of a paranoid era. Yet something about his wary gaze suggests otherwise. Late one night, Rhea discovers old film reels labelled Subject Trials and Mind Conditioning. She manages to view fragments, shaky images of subjects strapped to chairs, wired to devices pulsating with strange energy. A disembodied voice declares, "We are not simply training soldiers, we are reprogramming citizens." Her attempts to back up this data hit snags. Connections fail, files disappear. She confronts Kenner, who offers only vague assurances. Tension crackles between them. Despite his warning, she keeps digging. Each newly decrypted page reveals a hidden side of Operation Paperclip, one that didn't just bring rocket scientists to America, but also Nazi mind control researchers. Haunted by nightmares of faceless figures in lab coats, Rhea pushes on. She stumbles on the name Doctor. Elias Werner, a German scientist rumoured to have vanished after the war. Memos hint he continued his experiments on US soil under the banner of Protocol 4. She finds chilling notes about electromagnetic pulses used to manipulate thought patterns. The fine print speaks of moral lines crossed long ago. One day, Rhea tries to copy key files. The computer locks down mid-transfer. Someone or something is watching. A swirl of dread rises in her gut. Should she walk away? She can't. Conscience gnaws at her. She's come too far to bury the truth now. With cunning, she hides an external drive in her backpack, hoping to salvage a fragment of evidence. Kenner grows more agitated. He corners her in a hallway, voice low. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he says. Protocol 4 isn't ancient history, it's a living system. The words send a chill through her. She realises the experiments might never have stopped. Determined to expose it, Rhea reaches out to an underground researcher codenamed Corvid. He verifies her claims and warns her, expect retaliation. Meanwhile, her motel room is ransacked. Paranoia grips her, but so does resolve. Finally, Rhea finds a classified index describing how Protocol 4 evolved. The original Nazi scientists were relocated to black sites, honing techniques to shape public perception. Over time, these methods were folded into modern institutions, media, technology and social policy. Everything might bear Protocol 4's imprint. As she prepares to leave Site 12, Kenner confronts her again. His tone is conflicted. "If you release this, it could shatter trust in everything," he says. But maybe that trust deserves to be broken. She senses he's torn between loyalty and a hidden conscience. In a final act of defiance, Rhea uploads a fraction of the archive to a secure drop, hoping Corvid can spread the word. The lights flicker and armed security personnel appear. Kenner steps in, telling them to stand down. For a tense moment, no one moves. Then he nods, letting her pass. Rhea drives off into the desert night, heart hammering. Protocol 4 isn't just a relic, It's an unseen hand shaping the modern world. As she stares at the moonlit highway, she vows to continue shining light on the darkness. No matter the cost, she will ensure these secrets no longer hide beneath layers of dust and fear. That night, as she checks into a motel off a lonely stretch of highway, Rhea can't shake the sense of being watched. The dingy walls close in, and every sound beyond her door makes her flinch. She boots up her laptop to review the files she managed to save. Flickering on the screen are scanned documents referencing cognitive warfare and electromagnetic induction trials. One phrase stands out in bold: engineering belief structures. Her heartbeat quickens as she imagines the full implications. If governments possessed the means to covertly manipulate thoughts, who would ever be free? Each keystroke she makes now could become a target for powerful interests determined to silence her forever. Yet she can't let fear paralyze her. She wonders if her past whistleblowing experience was just a rehearsal for this moment, a chance to test her resolve. Before finally turning in for a restless sleep, she encrypts the new data and sends it to Corvid, along with a message: "This is bigger than we thought." A knot tightens in her stomach. She has crossed a line from which there is no return, entering a hidden battlefield where information is weaponized. Outside, wind sweeps across the desert, carrying with it ghosts of half-forgotten atrocities. As the stars wheel overhead, Rhea senses that the secrets of Protocol 4 stretch far beyond her discoveries, as though they form part of an invisible architecture underpinning modern society. In her dreams, she sees faces blurred by scientific ambition, each playing a part in shaping a future no one ever agreed to. By morning, her resolve is ironclad. She will learn the full truth, or die trying. No turning back. Rhea awakens to the desert sun piercing the thin curtains of her motel room. The tension in her body reminds her of the night's revelations. Protocol 4, Doctor. Elias Werner, and the unimaginable experiments carried out in secrecy. Her laptop pings, a secure message from Corvid. He's managed to upload fragments of her files to an encrypted server, but warns that unknown operatives are probing the data. Time is short. The clock reads 7 a.m, though it feels earlier. She gulps down bitter coffee, shoulders her backpack and steps outside. Immediately she notices a dark sedan idling in the parking lot. The driver's face is obscured by tinted windows, but Rhea senses she's being watched. She steels herself, climbs into her own car, and pulls onto the long, empty road toward Las Vegas. She has one goal: find someone credible who can verify the authenticity of the files and help her expose Protocol 4 publicly. Traffic is sparse, giving her too much room to ruminate on the parallels between her new discovery and the rumours she once dismissed as conspiracy theories. MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control project, had been declassified enough to stoke public outcry. But if that was the tip of the iceberg, what monstrous iceberg lurked beneath? She arranges to meet Dr. Kevin Yang, a retired psychology professor who once researched the history of clandestine US experiments. Years ago, he hinted online at knowledge linking Operation Paperclip to more sinister programs. If anyone can help, it's him. They arrange to meet at a quiet diner off the interstate. Rhea arrives early, scanning the parking lot for suspicious vehicles. The dark sedan is nowhere in sight. Relief mingles with unease. Inside the diner's fluorescent glow, Dr. Yang looks exactly as she imagined. Rumpled sweater, weary eyes, and an intellectual air that suggests a lifetime spent in dusty archives. Over watery coffee, Rhea hands him a small thumb drive. He loads it on a battered laptop. Screens of redacted documents and cryptic references to Werner's neurological repatterning flicker before his tired eyes. Yang's expression darkens. This goes beyond Paperclip's publicly known scope. It aligns with rumours of a fourth stage, one that was never officially listed. His voice trembles. I've heard whispers about cognitive manipulation research, trauma induction, forced conditioning, even microelectronic implants. It was rumoured to be so unethical that it was buried under countless layers of secrecy. A chill courses through Rhea. Do you think it continued? Yang nods grimly. There are ephemeral traces, unusual funding patterns, black budget allocations, private labs that vanish after a few years. Each clue by itself is meaningless, but together they paint a picture of ongoing experimentation. They agree the public deserves to know, but how? Rhea suggests mainstream media, but Yang warns that many outlets are compromised or too afraid of legal threats. The data might be discredited as a hoax, or overshadowed by sensational headlines. Underground networks might spread it, but it could get lost in the noise of conspiracy forums. Rhea's phone buzzes with a text from Kenna. "Where are you?" Her gut clenches. She ignores it. She's no longer taking orders. She's forging her own path. Still, she fears Kenna's next move. Yang gives her an address, an abandoned library in a nearby town, rumoured to house a group of fringe activists who specialise in secure data leaks. They might provide a platform for large-scale disclosure. As Rhea steps out, she spots the dark sedan parked across the road. A figure in a suit leans against the vehicle, smoking. Their faces turned away, but she can sense their attention is fixed on her. She ducks back into the diner, urges Dr. Yang to slip out the kitchen exit. Minutes later, she creeps to her car. The sedan's passenger door opens. A man steps out, broad-shouldered, wearing sunglasses that reflect the sun's glare. He calls her name. She slams her door and speeds off. The sedan follows, but she's prepared. Rhea veers onto a side street, weaving through traffic. Horns blare as she takes risky turns, adrenaline pumping. Finally, she manages to shake them near a construction zone. She heads to a secluded motel, body shaking from the close call. She can't help but recall Kenna's warning. Protocol 4 is a living system. Perhaps it employs watchers and enforcers, modern replacements for Werner's old methods. That evening, Rhea finds a neon-lit bar where she can slip into a corner booth undisturbed. She studies the documents again, picking out certain references she overlooked. A coded phone directory, a mention of Astra Group, and accounts of behavioural pilots tested in prisons. The date on one memo is from 2019, shockingly recent. She texts Corvid about Astra Group, receives a swift reply. Front company for advanced neuroscience research, rumoured defence ties. Her dread deepens. Meanwhile, Dr. Yang messages that he's made contact with one of the fringe activists at the library. They've agreed to help distribute the files. Rhea's mind races with possibilities. The plan is to meet tomorrow night. She wonders if she'll make it that far. She can't ignore the sense that each step forward draws her into a tightening noose. She thumbs through the last of the scanned images and stops at an old black and white photo. The label reads, Doctor, Werner, Jugohunderversionio. The man in the lab coat looks stern, eyes hollow, standing beside a row of caged subjects. She imagines the horrors behind that photo, the twisted logic that justified such atrocities. Her stomach churns. If that ethos persisted through modern institutions, humanity might be living under a quiet tyranny, shaped by forces no one sees. Late into the night, Rhea paces her motel room. She rechecks the door lock, props a chair beneath the handle. On her laptop, she glimpses shadowy files referencing a Werner doctrine, which appear to outline the ideological framework for Protocol 4. The text is incomplete, but phrases like programming the unconscious repeat with eerie regularity. She realises this story runs deeper than just secret labs or unethical science. It's about reshaping society from the inside out. A sudden hammering on her door jolts her. Heart racing, she peers through the peephole. No one is there. She waits, breath unsteady, but the corridor remains empty. Did she imagine it? Or was someone testing her reaction time? She returns to her laptop, determined to gather every shred of evidence for the meeting. Sleep comes only in short, fitful intervals. Come morning, she'll set off to meet the underground activists, risking everything to blow the lid off Protocol 4. Dr. Yang's words echo in her head. These experiments didn't just shape the Cold War, they shape our very perception of reality. If she fails, a monstrous legacy remains hidden, free to mould the future. If she succeeds, she could expose a conspiracy spanning generations. Either way, she's committed to shining light into this darkest corner of history. Her mind drifts to Kenner. Was he always part of this? Or did he inherit a role he couldn't refuse? The line between ally and enemy blurs, yet none of that changes her course. She has a mission now, one that might cost her everything. The day's first sunlight peeks through the curtains, reminding her it's time to move. With a silent vow, she gathers her gear and steps into the unknown, carrying proof of an atrocity that refuses to die. Under a sky tinged with the pink hues of dawn, Rhea points her car toward the abandoned library. She keeps glancing in the rearview mirror, bracing for the dark sedan to reappear. The miles pass in tense silence, each breath a reminder that her safety hangs by a thread. As she nears the town, clusters of boarded-up buildings loom into view, remnants of an era that prosperity left behind. Following Dr. Yang's directions, she pulls into a cracked parking lot behind the library. The structure is a hulking Gothic pile of stone and rotted wood, window shattered. It looks like a place where secrets could easily stay hidden. She steps out and scans the area. No sign of watchers, though she suspects they're not far. Inside, the library's musty air clings to her lungs. Rows of shelves stand like silent sentinels, their books long pillaged. Amid the debris, a single lamp casts a dim glow near a makeshift table. Two figures wait there, Dr. Yang and a tall, wiry individual with close-cropped hair, presumably the activist contact. At her approach, they exchange wary greetings. The activist introduces himself as Declan Hayes. They waste no time. Rhea hands over her drives, explaining the urgent need to release this information wide and fast. Declan nods grimly. They have a network of encrypted relays. They can push the data to thousands of nodes overnight. Once it's out there, no single entity can scrub it. Diocese and Dr. Yang, arms folded, looks uneasy. But will people believe it? Or will it be dismissed as another conspiracy? The lines between truth and misinformation are so blurred now. Rhea's chest tightens. I've thought about that. We have to provide enough credible detail, timestamps, official signatures, references to known paperclip operations, that the evidence speaks for itself. Declan boots up a rugged laptop, typing commands at breakneck speed. He glances at Rhea's files, eyebrows knitting in concentration. Military memos, lab reports, even film reels. This is horrifying. But it's exactly the kind of trove that can't be ignored if it's handled right. As they plan, footsteps echo on the broken floor behind them. Kenner steps from the shadows, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Rhea tenses, ready to bolt. Dr. Yang mutters, "How did he find us?" Kenner's voice is low. "I'm not here to stop you. Not exactly. I came to warn you. If you do this, you'll be painting targets on your backs for forces beyond my control." Declan glares. "So we're just supposed to keep quiet about mind control experiments? About Nazi eugenicists continuing their work on American soil?" Kenner sighs. "I'm not defending it. But you need to understand how deep this goes. Protocol 4 is older than any of us. It's baked into the system. You might get the truth out, but it could vanish under a flood of counter-disinformation, or you'll simply disappear." Rhea steps forward, mind racing. "And why come here? Why not shut us down?" After a long pause, Kenner responds quietly. "Because I've seen enough to know it's wrong. I was tasked with overseeing you, making sure you didn't dig too deep. But the deeper you went, the more I questioned my orders. Now there's no turning back. I'd rather see the truth than live in darkness. A sudden crash echoes through the library. Shattered glass rains from above. 3 men in tactical gear drop from the rafters, rifles aimed. Freeze! They fan out, laser sights dancing on the group. Kenner curses under his breath. They're here sooner than I thought. Declan scrambles to yank a cable from the laptop, but a guard barks, "Hands where we can sound so I can see them." The second guard steps forward and rips the drive from the computer, snatching Ria's bag with practiced efficiency. Heart pounding, Ria raises her hands slowly, anger flaring as she sees the data slip away. Just then, Kenner shouts, "Stand down, I have authority here!" He brandishes an ID card from inside his jacket. The guards exchange uncertain looks. One radios a superior, stepping aside momentarily. The tension is electric. Dr. Yang trembles, possibly regretting every step that led him here. Seconds later, the guard returns, expression unreadable. "Orders are to neutralize the leak." The men close in, weapons raised. Kenner steps between them and Ria, arms out. "If you do this, there's no going back. The brass can't hide a massacre of private citizens." A brief standoff ensues. Voices hiss commands. The muzzle of a rifle presses into Kenner's chest. Ria's fear severe spikes, but her mind churns with survival instincts. She notices Yang inching sideways, eyes fixed on a row of fallen shelves. Declan grips a broken plank, sweat glistening on his brow. Suddenly, a thunderous crash shakes the rafters. Part of the ceiling, weakened by decay, collapses in a cloud of dust. Amid the chaos, Ria drops to the floor, grabbing her bag from one startled guard. Declan lunges with the plank, knocking another aside. Kenner seizes the moment, driving his elbow into the rifleman's gut. Shots ring out, bullets smacking into walls. Sparks fly as they ricochet off metal shelving. Coughing in the swirling dust, Ria clutches the bag, uncertain if the drive is still inside. She crawls toward a side door, heart hammering. Kenner stumbles beside her, his right arm bleeding. Dr. Yang and Declan vanish into the haze. "This way," Kenner shouts, guiding Ria through a narrow passage. At the library's side exit, they burst into the open air, lungs desperate for clean oxygen. Sirens wail in the distance. The attackers must have backup en route. Kenner limps, wincing with each step. Ria loops his arm around her shoulder, helping him toward her car. Adrenaline surges through her, spurring them onward. She fumbles for the keys, praying the engine starts. Just as they pull away, black SUVs roar into the parking lot. A flurry of gunfire echoes behind them, but Ria's sedan tears down the street, old tyres squealing. She glances in the rear view to see Yang and Declan scramble out another exit, a shape of silhouettes in the distance. Relief washes over her. Some of them escaped at least. Her mind reels. They almost died. The data might be lost or compromised. Kenner groans in pain, pressing his hand against his bleeding arm. She hands him a rag from the glove box. She wants to scream, cry, and curse the system that forced them into this madness. Instead, she forces composure, scanning the road for more pursuers. After a series of frantic turns through deserted streets, they reach an abandoned gas station. Ria parks behind the crumbling structure, body still trembling. She checks her bag. Miraculously, the encrypted drive remains. "We still have it," she whispers. "We can try again." Kenner exhales shakily. "We need medical supplies. But more than that, we need a plan. They'll track us." He looks into her eyes. "If you truly want to expose Protocol 4, we need to show the public something undeniable, something that can't be labelled a hoax." Ria nods, heart pounding with renewed resolve. "Then we find Werner's original test footage, or living survivors who can testify. We prove these experiments are still happening. We drag them into the light." Their gazes lock. In that moment, an unspoken alliance forms. The situation is bleak, their enemies powerful, but they have what matters, a spark of truth. As the day brightens, they set off into an uncertain future. each step forging a path to expose a monstrous legacy that has plagued them for too long. Kenna's injury compels them to find refuge in a rundown farmhouse, half buried beneath desert scrub. Rhea applies a makeshift bandage, wincing at the severity of his wound. Though the bullet only grazed him, the blood loss has left him pale. While he rests on a threadbare couch, she searches the dusty rooms for anything useful: bottled water, a first aid kit, maybe an old phone line. The once cosy farmhouse brims with echoes of past lives. Faded wallpaper, children's drawings taped to a fridge. It stands as a silent testament to an ordinary existence overshadowed by secrets Rhea never imagined. A functioning landline proves elusive, so she returns to Kenna, laptop in hand. He stirs. What's the plan now? His voice trembles with fatigue. She glances at the encrypted drive. We need proof that stands up to scrutiny. Decrypting everything might take time we don't have, but if we can find a smoking gun, like footage of live experiments, no one can call it mere rumour. Kenna nods weakly, motioning for water. Check the archives for references to subject interviews or personal testimonies. Paper trails can be spun as fake, but real human stories are harder to dismiss. He grimaces as he sits up. I also recall mention of a hidden vault at Site 12, possibly containing old reels too sensitive to destroy. A knot forms in Rhea's stomach. The idea of returning to Site 12 chills her, yet it might be their best chance. She powers up the laptop, scanning for relevant clues. Between dusty references and partial file names, she uncovers a lead. Archive R9, rumoured to be off limits, even within the facility's inner circles. She reads an excerpt about Dr. Werner personally supervising Phase 3 field tests as late as 1959. Sensing that time is against them, Rhea sets to work on a secure line to Dr. Yang. She crafts an encrypted email, uncertain if he's still free or alive. She details her plan to retrieve physical evidence from Site 12 and begs for any support he can muster. She presses send and hopes the message slips past watchers. Kenna tries to stand, wincing. We can't linger, they'll comb the desert. They have resources beyond your imagination, private contractors, off-book agencies. We need to move quickly. Together they limp out to Rhea's car. She drives cautiously, weaving through back roads. The midday sun bakes the landscape, shimmering heat waves distorting the horizon. Kenna glances over the seat at her bag. You still have the drive, right? She pats it protectively. Yes, even if the rest is lost, this might lead us to the heart of Protocol 4. They both fall silent, tension thick in the stale air. Hours later they arrive on the outskirts of Site 12. The facility's brutal concrete facade looms against the desert sky, ringed by chain-link fences. Military vehicles cluster near the entrance. Helicopters circle overhead. Clearly, the drama at the library escalated the situation. Rhea halts the car behind an outcropping of boulders. We'll never get in like this. Kenna peers through binoculars. There's a service tunnel around the back, a ventilation shaft that leads down near Archive R9. It was sealed off, but I doubt they replaced the locking mechanisms. We might slip in that way. They wait until dusk. The desert sky glows with fiery reds and oranges. Rhea's pulse quickens at every drone passing overhead. Once shadows deepen, they approach on foot, moving from rock to rock. Kenna, fighting pain, leads her to a rusted grate half buried in sand. With a crowbar they pry it open, the metal screeching in protest. Inside, darkness and stagnant air greet them. The tunnel is cramped, forcing them to crawl. After what feels like an eternity, they spot a faint light ahead, a hatch that opens onto a maintenance corridor. They listen. No voices. Easing the hatch open, they slip through. Site 12's innards feel even more oppressive than before. Emergency lights flicker in a labyrinth of concrete hallways. Muffled echoes hint at distant patrols. Kenna motions toward a direction he recalls, leading them deeper into restricted zones. The tension is suffocating. Each footstep on the cold floor resonates like thunder in Rhea's ears. They reach a steel door marked R9. A keypad glows ominously beside it. Kenna exhales. I'll try the override codes I used to have, but there's no guarantee. He taps commands. The door clicks, unlocked. They exchange a glance, then push it open. Rows of metal shelves greet them, stacked with film canisters and battered crates. Dim overhead lights reveal a vault of historical nightmares. Dust motes swirl as Rhea runs a flashlight beam over labels. Test footage, Group A. Neurological trials, NIM53. Subject interviews. Her heart pounds. This might be the smoking gun they need. They start rummaging. Kenna cradles a canister labelled Phase 3 Werner Oversight. Rhea finds a crate with reels simply marked Public Conditioning Trials 1955. The chilling possibilities swirl in her mind. She carefully places them into a duffel bag. She also snaps photos of each label, hoping to prove authenticity. Suddenly, a voice echoes in the corridor. "Check Archive R9 next!" Footsteps approach, boot heels clacking on concrete. Rhea kills the flashlight. They flatten themselves behind shelves as beams of light sweep the vault. Her pulse thunders in her ears. A group of armed men enter, 4 silhouettes brandishing rifles. Their leader scans the rows. "We have orders to confiscate all Category Red material." Another soldier moves toward the shelves Rhea and Kenna hide behind. She grips Kenna's hand, sweat beading on her forehead. Just as the soldier rounds the corner, an alarm blares elsewhere in the facility. Another voice crackles through a radio. "Intruder detected near sub-level 2!" The guards exchange glances, then rush out, footsteps fading quickly. Exhaling relief, Rhea and Kenna seize the moment. They slip back into the corridor. A klaxon wails, lights flashing. The entire facility is on high alert. Weighing the duffel of reels, Rhea realises they're heavy. Too heavy to run far with. Still, they push forward, seeking the maintenance tunnel. Turning a corner, they nearly collide with a small security team. Kenna shoves Rhea aside, diving behind equipment. Gunfire rattles the hall. She hits the floor as bullets ricochet. Kenna returns fire with a pistol he grabbed back at the farmhouse. The attackers scatter. "Go!" he roars. Rhea scrambles away, duffel clutched to her chest. She hears Kenna's pained shout behind her, but there's no turning back. She rounds another corner and ducks into a storage alcove. Her breath comes in ragged gasps. Alarms keep blaring, the place echoing with chaos. She spots a shaft leading upward, another ventilation route. Forcing the heavy bag through, she hoists herself up. Sweat drips into her eyes. She crawls again, half blind, the metal walls reverberating with each muffled gunshot. Finally, she emerges onto the desert floor through a second grate. The cool night air envelops her like a shock. With trembling hands, she stumbles away from the facility, glancing back for the Kenna. No sign of him. Her thoughts race. Did he survive? She pictures his wounded expression, his sudden determination to do the right thing. She forces herself forward, mind reeling. The reels in her duffel feel heavier than ever, tangible proof of nightmares past. She can't let them be lost. Dazed, she staggers across the desert toward the rocky outcropping where they'd parked. But the car is gone. Dust and tyre tracks remain. A single overhead drone whirs in the distance. She drops behind a boulder, her heart thudding painfully. She's alone, on foot, with a vault of evidence. The desert night stretches infinitely, offering no comfort. Steeling her resolve, she realises what's at stake. Kenna risked everything so these canisters could escape. She must find Dr. Yang, or Declan, any ally who can help release the footage. Shivering despite the heat, she starts walking. Each step takes her farther from Site 12, but deeper into an unknown battle. The only way forward is to reveal the truth that Protocol 4 has kept buried for decades. Dawn breaks like a silent promise over the desert. Rhea's feet ache, her throat parched as she trudges onward. Clutching the duffel of reels, she eventually spots a humble gas station at the edge of a back road. Its flickering neon sign feels like a beacon. She slips inside, ignoring the curious gaze of the lone clerk, and rummages for bottled water. Quivering with exhaustion, she guzzles half in one go. Outside she paces, uncertain of her next move. Her phone is dead, useless after hours of infiltration. She dares approach the payphone near the pumps, dropping coins into it. After punching a memorized sequence of digits, she hears Dr. Yang's voice on the other end, strained but alive. Relief surges through her. "I escaped the library raid," he says. "Declan's group managed to replicate some of your files before we scattered. Where are you?" Rhea explains her location, voice trembling with grief for Kenna, who may be lost. Yang hesitates, then tells her a new safe house awaits outside a small desert town. "We can't stay in cities. Too many eyes. I have a contact with the generator and projectors. Maybe we can screen your reels." She hangs up, feeling a faint spark of hope. Within an hour, a battered pickup truck appears, driven by a woman wearing mirrored sunglasses. She introduces herself as Eva, a quiet ally of Dr. Yang's. Rhea climbs in. They exchange few words as they speed down sun-scorched roads, the heavy duffel pressed against Rhea's side. They arrive at a dilapidated ranch, ringed by dead trees. A generator hums behind the house. Dr. Yang waits inside with Declan. Relief transforms their tired features when Rhea steps in. She sets the duffel on a wooden table. We have physical evidence, film reels. If these are as damning as I suspect, they'll expose Protocol 4 once and for all. Declan wastes no time, rigging up an old projector and unspooling the first reel. Everyone gathers in tense silence. The flickering frames reveal dated footage. Dr. Elias Werner standing beside men in uniform. Subjects are strapped to chairs, electrodes are fixed to their temples. The film's grainy audio hisses with a menacing voice. Commencing thought recalibration sequence, iteration 7. A cold weight settles in Rhea's chest. On screen, the subjects writhe, mouths open in silent screams. A beep marks each jolt of electricity. Werner's detached commentary plays. Observe how quickly malleable cognitive patterns emerge under duress. The camera zooms on a chart measuring brainwaves. The scene cuts abruptly to a different set of subjects. The footage is horrifying. They watch reel after reel, each more disturbing. Induced trauma, bizarre conditioning regimens, children separated from parents, scenes labelled field trials show unwitting civilians tested with subtle neurological triggers. Rhea fights nausea as her darkest suspicions confirm themselves. Protocol 4 was a methodical endeavour to reshape minds, carried out long after the war ended. When the final reel snaps off, the room is silent. Dr. Yang's eyes glisten with tears. "This is undeniable. If we release this, no one can claim it's mere theory." Declan's face is stern. "We'll digitize these immediately, spread them to secure nodes. But the public will still need context, someone to speak out." Rhea steels herself. "I'll go on record. I'll testify to how I found these. I'll risk my name, my safety. This must be known." They set to work. Eva readies cameras to record Rhea's statement, while Declan improvises a digital camera rig to capture the film footage. The plan is straightforward. Upload everything en masse to multiple channels. Independent news sites, social media, encrypted forums. Dr. Yang composes a careful introduction, citing the documented evidence, emphasizing the continuity between Paperclip and Protocol 4. They hope truth, once unleashed, can't be easily silenced. A few hours into the process, a screech of tires shatters the stillness outside. Rhea's heart leaps. Are they found again? She and Declan rush to the window. A vehicle door slams. Kenna steps out, swaying unsteadily, a blood-stained bandage on his arm. Relief floods Rhea's face as she helps him inside. He explains in halting breaths how he escaped Site 12 through a secondary tunnel after drawing fire away from her. "They'll be on my trail," he warns. "We don't have long." Dr. Yang offers him a seat. Kenna locks eyes with Rhea. "Did you get what you needed?" She nods. "We're uploading everything, the reels, the archives. It'll go public." A trace of a smile crosses his haggard features. Then my defection wasn't in vain. He stares at the projector's remnants, Werner's ghosts. This place was built on them. They work feverishly, uploading files over a shaky satellite link. Hours pass like minutes. The sun sets, painting the sky a bruised purple. Each clip of film, each scanned memo is compressed and distributed in fragments so it can be pieced together globally. Rhea's recorded testimony goes last. In it, she recounts her discovery at Site 12, her near-death escapes, the moral imperative to reveal the truth. At midnight, Declan hits execute on the upload script. A hush falls in the dimly lit room. Rhea's breath quivers with a mix of triumph and dread. She envisions the repercussions, official denials, smear campaigns, the public's stunned disbelief. She also imagines a sliver of hope that enough people will demand answers, forcing unstoppable accountability. Kenna stands, wincing from his wound. "We should move. They'll trace our signal eventually." Dr. Yang nods. "I have a friend with a safe location. We can regroup." They gather their gear, leaving behind only the battered projector and the reels, now preserved in digital form. Before departing, Rhea takes a final look at the flickering screen. A freeze frame shows Dr. Werner's emotionless visage. Her spine tingles. She remembers that old line from one of the archived memos. "We are not programming soldiers, we are programming citizens." That shadow might still stretch across modern society. Outside, the night is quiet except for the chirp of distant insects. They load into 2 vehicles. Dr. Yang takes the lead, Kenna beside him, while Rhea, Declan and Eva follow. Far off, the faint glow of a city taints the horizon, a reminder that an unsuspecting world is about to receive a deluge of shocking truths. Long hours on desert roads pass. No immediate sirens or helicopters this time, but tension lingers. In the back seat, Rhea checks her phone, no signal yet. They arrive at a deserted canyon overlook. The group disembarks, heart still hammering. They gather on a rocky ledge, starlight shimmering overhead. A moment of collective exhale. Suddenly, Rhea's phone blinks to life. Messages flood in, mostly from Corvid's network. Words of astonishment, gratitude, and alarm. Fragments of the reels are already circulating. Hashtags referencing Protocol 4 and Werner Truth trend on underground forums. A wave of disbelief and horror blankets the digital sphere. Declan glances at Rhea. "We did it, but it's just the beginning." She nods. The system will fight back. Yet what was once hidden is now visible, even if many refuse to believe. She stares at Kenna, who meets her gaze with weary acceptance. In the silence, they all sense the gravity of what they've unleashed. Dr. Yang murmurs, "Some will label this a hoax, but others will see the evidence for what it is. Either way, the conversation has changed." Rhea breathes in the cool night air. She remembers the opening lines of the archived footage, that chilling monotone of Dr. Werner describing the human mind as clay to be moulded. No more. The truth is free, and with it, a chance, however small, to reclaim the narrative from those who twisted it in the shadows. She lets her eyes drift across the star-flecked sky. The night feels vast, alive with possibility. Tomorrow the world will learn about a hidden protocol that never ended, about horrors that shaped generations. And though the path ahead is fraught with uncertainty, Rhea stands resolute, living proof that even the darkest legacy can be dragged into the light. The desert wind rattled loose tin on the Navarro ranch house as lightning clawed at the sky. Rain spattered on dusty window panes, an uncommon fury for a New Mexico summer. Betty Navarro, a rancher's daughter of 19, steadied a lantern by the back door. Her father, Miguel Navarro, had hurried out moments ago, muttering about a fierce storm that might spook their livestock. The thunder overhead rumbled, setting Betty's nerves on edge. She paused in the kitchen, about to douse the lantern for a moment's rest, when a flash of brightness cut across the black horizon. Not lightning, but something else. She dashed to the open doorway. A narrow, blazing streak arced overhead, sputtering sparks like metal scraping the atmosphere. It vanished behind a ridge just beyond the ranch fields, followed by a bizarre, echoing boom. The ground trembled. Betty's heart hammered. Could it be a plane crash? She called out for her father, but heard only the storm's roar. Grabbing her slicker, she ran into the rain, scanning the fields for any sign of him. In the distance, an otherworldly glow flickered behind the far fence line. The cattle bellowed in alarm. Something definitely had come down from the sky. Something big. It might be debris or wreckage. Gritting her teeth, she pushed through the mud, praying her father was safe. The next morning, word spread through Roswell about a ranch where strange debris had been discovered. Neighbours whispered about metal that bends and then reforms, rumours of symbols etched on scraps. But hours later, the Army Airfield's official statement shifted the story. First, it was said to be a flying disc, then abruptly relabelled a weather balloon. The confusion only fueled speculation. Some insisted the material was too exotic for a mere balloon. Others shrugged it off as a fancy government project. For local folks, it was a passing curiosity, except for those who'd witnessed the lights in the storm. That same day, Daniel "Danny" Cole, an eager junior reporter at the local newspaper, was on the trail of the weirdest assignment of his budding career. He'd heard that Betty Navarro's father had driven into town early, telling a few folks about the odd metal he found in his grazing fields. By the time the army arrived to hush him up, the rumour mill was already blazing. Danny's editor, an older man with a short temper, tossed him a single line of instruction. Go find out if this is news or nonsense. With a pencil behind his ear and a notepad in hand, Danny steered his battered truck toward the Navarro ranch. En route, he spotted a row of army trucks rumbling back to Roswell, tarps covering what appeared to be crates. Odd tension itched at the back of his mind. Why would the military be so secretive about a balloon crash? Arriving at the dusty driveway, he found Betty Navarro standing by a fence, her clothes still stained with mud from the prior night. She eyed him warily, suspecting he might be another official come to strong-arm her father. He introduced himself gently, explaining he was just a local reporter hunting for the truth. That seemed to ease her suspicion. With a tired sigh, she nodded toward the pasture. We're not supposed to talk about it. The army men told us it's classified, but all we want is to understand what happened on our land. Walking alongside Betty, Danny glimpsed the flattened tall grass where something had skidded. A few scorched patches dotted the ground. She recounted how she'd found her father near dawn, staring at twisted shards. He was convinced it wasn't from any typical plane or balloon, like nothing he'd seen in 40 years of ranching. Then soldiers swarmed in, whisked away the wreckage, told him to keep silent or face dire consequences. He now lay in bed, nerves frayed, spouting paranoid worries that he'd be hauled off if he talked. Betty bristled at the thought. He just stumbled on that debris. We're no criminals. She led Danny to a small shed where her father had stashed a single piece he'd pocketed, an L-shaped sliver of dull silver about the size of a paperback. She handed it over with trembling caution. Danny turned it in his hands, marvelling at how lightweight it was. Aluminum, he guessed, but pressing his thumb left no dent. Even repeated attempts to crease it failed. Suddenly Betty took it back, folded it almost in half with surprising ease, then let go, and it snapped back to its original shape. No signs of bending or stress. Danny swallowed hard. This can't be normal metal. From behind them an engine roared, making them jump. The jeep skidded to a stop near the shed. 2 uniformed men hopped out, guns visible at their hips. One barked, "Step away!" "That's government property." They marched over, demanding the piece. Betty clutched it to her chest, her eyes flashing. Danny, pulse racing, tried to calm the situation. "We're just looking, sirs. She's the owner of this ranch." But the men ignored him, forcibly snatching the debris from Betty. They levelled a cold glare. "Stop meddling. or you'll regret it." With that, they drove off in a cloud of dust, leaving Betty trembling in fury. The feeling that something was deeply amiss sank into Danny's gut. That afternoon, a press release from the Army airfield stated unequivocally that the recovered wreckage was a weather balloon. The local sheriff's office parroted the same line. Meanwhile, half the town whispered about flying discs, UFOs, or secret weapon prototypes. The radio crackled with crackpot call-ins. Danny's editor, spooked by the Army's sudden interest, told him to drop the story. No sense stirring trouble, kid. But Danny's curiosity burned. The conflicting accounts, plus the bizarre behaviour of those soldiers, hinted at something bigger. This was no ordinary crash. Back in his small apartment, Danny typed out notes about Betty's testimonies, the odd metal fragment, the ominous warnings. He had no illusions that printing any of it in next morning's edition would be easy. Yet the sense that Roswell was at the centre of a swirling conspiracy made him determined. He needed more angles, more proof. The next step, find out if anyone else had glimpsed the lights or had scraps of wreckage. But as he mulled over names to contact, a knock hammered on his door. Peering through the peephole, he saw two strangers in plain suits. He opened the door a crack. One man hissed, "Cole? We know you've been snooping at Navarro's place. Let it go." The second man stepped forward, voice low and menacing. "You didn't see anything unusual. Remember that." Then they left, footsteps echoing in the hallway. Danny's pulse thundered. In one day he'd witnessed a crashed object of unknown origin, encountered bullying soldiers, and now faced intimidation at his own doorstep. He realised that whatever fell in Roswell wasn't just scraps of metal. It might be the key to a story that could upend everything the public had been told. The question was, how far were these unseen forces willing to go to keep a lid on it? And was Danny, a fledgling reporter, brave or foolish enough to push onward? Clutching his notes, he sat on the edge of his bed, mind racing. Something extraordinary had shattered that New Mexico sky last night, and the shadowy efforts to hide it were as real as the desert thunder still rattling in his memory. He decided, I won't be scared off. Tomorrow, he'd dig deeper, step by step, determined to uncover the truth. The day after the men in suits threatened him, Danny Cole woke early, consumed by a sense of purpose. He typed up what he had so far, the unusual debris with shape memory properties, the contradictory official statements, the intimidation attempts. But in rereading it, he realised the piece lacked definitive evidence. A sensational claim needed more than hearsay. He needed additional eyewitnesses or a smoking gun. Without that, his editor would never run the story, and the Army might label him a crank. He headed first to the local sheriff's office, hoping for a chat with the deputy who'd initially tipped him off about the Navarro ranch. The station's waiting area smelled of stale coffee, but the deputy seemed cagey now, eyes darting as he spoke in hushed tones. "Look, kid, I told you about the ranch because I figured something smelled fishy, but now folks from the Army in some unknown suits have shown up, telling me to keep quiet. They're using words like national security." The deputy looked genuinely spooked, refusing to say more. "Don't drag me deeper into this, Danny. I got a family." With that, the conversation ended. Next, Danny tried visiting local ranchers, who might have glimpsed unusual lights during the thunderstorm. Several admitted hearing a bizarre boom, or seeing flashes that didn't match normal lightning. But none had concrete proof. One ranch hand mumbled about metal scattered across the field, but the Army confiscated everything the next morning. Another said she saw Army trucks hauling large tarps. Still, speculation remained rumour level. Despite the swirl of talk, there was no tangible artefact to show. The net apparently had been cast wide. The Army seemed determined to erase all physical traces of the crash. As Danny walked down Roswell's main street late that afternoon, a voice hissed from an alley, "Psst, Cole!" He glanced over, startled, to see a tall, lanky figure beckoning. Oliver Grayson, a local recluse known for odd theories about secret government tests. He wore rumpled clothes and clutched a rolled-up sheet of paper. "I have something you'll want to see," he whispered. Danny approached warily. Oliver's eyes darted left and right, as though expecting watchers. Oliver led him to a dingy back room behind a boarded-up photography studio. There, he unrolled the sheet. It was a large negative from a camera, apparently capturing streaks of light in the sky. "Took this the night of the storm," Oliver said, voice trembling with excitement. The negative showed multiple lines, perhaps meteor-like trails, except one line curved oddly, as if under controlled flight. I was out trying to snap lightning shots. Then I saw these lights. They moved too intelligently to be random. Danny squinted. The negative quality made it difficult to interpret, but it definitely looked peculiar. If real, it might bolster the claim that something extraordinary flew overhead that night. Why not show the police? Or the paper? Oliver snorted. They'd call me a crank. Also, those men in suits rummaged through my place. I barely hid this negative before they arrived. They took everything else. He inhaled shakily. I know they're covering up something big. That evening, the Roswell Army Airfield held a hasty press conference. Major Harold Tate, a tall, composed officer, took the podium. Beside him, a bland visual display of a weather balloon's diagram was pinned up. Journalists from the local paper asked if the Army still stood by their explanation. Tate nodded gravely. Yes, we recovered a balloon and related radar reflectors. No evidence suggests anything unusual. He urged citizens to trust official channels, denouncing wild rumours about unknown craft. Danny was in the back, scribbling notes. He saw the tightness in Tate's jaw when asked pointedly about the ranch location, or the rumoured strange metal. Tate repeated the same line. Balloon materials, nothing else. The tension in the room was palpable. Then, in a moment of quiet, Danny asked, Major, can you confirm you visited or seized property from any civilian homes, like the Navarro Ranch, for purely weather balloon debris? Tate's eyes flickered. Those are routine procedures, he replied stiffly. If folks have mistaken ordinary junk for something else, we clarify and remove what belongs to the government. No further explanation. Over the next few days, Roswell's rumour mill intensified. Some insisted the entire crash was a hoax. Others whispered about little men taken to the base. In local diners, talk alternated between scornful jokes and uneasy speculation. Meanwhile, the Army presence around the outskirts grew. Patrols began restricting access to remote desert roads, claiming it was for safety. They're systematically shutting down the story, Danny thought. One morning, Betty Navarro arrived at the newspaper's office, flustered. She explained that her father had been visited again by men in suits, who repeated the weather balloon line and threatened legal trouble if he said otherwise. He's a proud man, but he's frightened, Betty said, eyes flashing with anger. She placed a battered envelope on Danny's desk. Inside was a second chunk of that bizarre metal. We'd kept it hidden. I can't just let them stomp on the truth. Danny touched the fragment. Indeed, the same strange properties. He promised to safeguard it. Through a contact at the local airfield, Danny arranged a secret meeting with Dr. Evangeline Parker, rumoured to be an aerospace engineer quietly assisting Major Tate's project. Late one evening, they met in a deserted hangar's shadows. Parker, her face etched with worry, confirmed that the debris was not from any standard balloon or plane. She'd run tests showing unearthly durability and superlight composition, yet official instructions forced her to classify it as common. She felt deeply torn, a sense of duty to her country versus moral unease about perpetuating a lie. She showed him lab notes, incomplete but revealing anomalous chemical structures. I suspect it's a technology we can't replicate with known alloys, she whispered. But if I speak openly, I'm done. Possibly imprisoned. Danny gulped. So the Army's lying, systematically? Parker nodded. They claim it's to prevent mass hysteria or foreign exploitation, but it's bigger than that. They might be dissecting something that rewrites everything we know about flight. She urged him to be cautious. As dawn neared, Dr. Parker disappeared into the gloom, leaving Danny reeling. Advanced metal, reverse engineering. The puzzle pieces aligned. The Army's clampdown was more than mere pride or embarrassment. They wanted to harness an unearthly find. Could it truly be from beyond Earth, or was it advanced domestic tech? Regardless, the secrecy suggested a massive conspiracy. With Oliver Grayson's photograph, Betty's second metal piece, and Dr. Parker's hints, Danny now had potential proof. Yet he felt watchers behind every corner. Each phone call crackled suspiciously. An unmarked sedan loitered near the paper's building. Even his editor avoided him in the hallway. Fear weighed heavy. If Danny published, would these men in suits escalate? Could he vanish like some folks rumoured? At midnight in his cramped apartment, Danny typed a draft article titled Debris in the Desert, More Than a Balloon. He included everything. The rancher testimonies, the inexplicable metal, Oliver's photograph, Parker's anonymised statements. He planned to show it to the editor in the morning. If only I can get the paper to run it. But something told him the next 24 hours would decide whether the truth saw daylight or was buried deeper than the desert dunes. He slept fitfully, the hush of late-night Roswell broken only by the soft hum of passing military vehicles, an ominous lullaby that underscored how close he stood to something bigger than he'd ever imagined. The next morning, Daniel Cole arrived at the paper with a glimmer of hope, only to discover the editor's door locked and a meeting in progress sign. Murmuring voices leaked through. It sounded like the editor was speaking with men who had crisp, authoritative tones. Danny knocked once, hesitated. The door cracked open. A grey-suited man with cold eyes peered out. "We'll be done soon," he said icily. 5 minutes later, both men brushed past Danny without a glance, disappearing down the corridor. Danny entered the office to find his editor, sweaty and shaken, rummaging through some papers. "Kid," the editor began, voice trembling, "I can't run your piece. These, army reps said it's national security. They threatened legal action if we print speculation." Danny's protest died in his throat, seeing the fear in the older man's eyes. He realised the story was effectively blacklisted from local press. "I'm sorry," the editor added quietly, refusing to meet Danny's gaze. "Write about anything else you want, just not this." With the local newspaper gagged, Danny's frustration peaked. That afternoon he found Oliver Grayson hunched in a corner booth at a dusty cafe. The frantic man shoved an envelope across the table, negatives from the prior night's attempt at photographing new lights. "Look at these," Oliver whispered, eyes darting. "I spotted more strange aerial objects over the ranch region, different from standard planes. I tried to call the radio station, but they brushed me off. The local press is compromised. We got to go bigger national." Danny studied the negatives in the dim cafe light. They were faint, but some lines indeed suggested unusual flight patterns. Could be illusions, but combined with Dr. Parker's statements and the metal shard, it formed a mosaic of evidence. "We might have to contact a bigger outlet," Danny said, nodding, "but the army's already breathing down my neck." Oliver shrugged, fear glimmering. "They'll destroy me if they find out, but if we do nothing, they'll bury the truth forever." That night, Danny typed a detailed account from home, 8 pages typed single-spaced, hoping to mail it to a national wire service. The phone rang near midnight. He answered groggily. Static hissed. Then a mechanical-sounding voice said, "We see your typewriter blazing. Stop, or the next knock you hear won't be so polite." The line went dead. Adrenaline spiked. He dashed to his window, peering outside. Sure enough, a dark sedan idled across the street. This was an escalation. They were tapping his calls. "I need to vanish if I want to get this out safely," he realised. He stuffed the typed pages, plus Oliver's negative prints, plus Betty's second metal shard into a satchel. Then he wrote a quick note to Betty, telling her to meet him at a deserted gas station near the highway at dawn. After a sleepless night, he quietly slipped out before sunrise. The sedan was still there, but the occupant apparently dozed off, or so Danny hoped. He guided his battered truck onto the dusty roads, heart pounding. At the designated spot, Betty arrived in her father's old pickup. She looked anxious, hair tied back. They compared notes. She'd had more visits from stoic men claiming the family best remain silent. They demanded the last piece of debris. She'd feigned ignorance. "We have to get this to someone who'll help," she said. "But who?" Danny decided to contact Dr. Evangeline Parker again. Maybe she had scientific colleagues outside the region who'd verify the artifact's authenticity. Betty agreed. They set out to find Parker at a secret location, a friend of a friend's empty barn on the outskirts, where Parker occasionally retreated for privacy. The drive felt surreal, desert wind whistling past. Both half expected a military checkpoint at any moment. They found Parker waiting in the barn's shadowy interior, eyes shadowed with fatigue. She had news. The base was intensifying its security. Major Tate was rumoured to have formed a special unit to track subversive elements in Roswell. She also claimed she'd seen glimpses of a second site where more debris had been stored, and possibly biological materials. She refused to elaborate, but her haunted expression said it all. "I'm done playing along," Parker murmured, scanning the artifact shard Betty extended. "We need to publish proof, or history might rewrite itself as a trivial balloon incident." Just then, a booming voice rang out. "Freeze!" A group of uniformed soldiers, led by none other than Major Harold Tate himself, emerged from behind bales of hay, their rifles aimed unwaveringly. The trio, Danny, Betty, Parker, raised their hands in alarm. Tate's eyes glinted with cold triumph. Breaking onto private property, conspiring to steal government assets, you're all in serious trouble. He nodded at a subordinate who grabbed the metal shard from Parker's hands, sealed it in a pouch. Danny's breath caught. We're simply verifying the truth, Major. You have no right. Tate cut him off with a sneer. I have every right. This is a matter of national security. You meddle beyond your depth. People who push too far in matters like these often vanish. Betty bristled, fists clenched, but a soldier pointed a gun barrel her way. She glared silently. Tate motioned for them to be bound with zip ties. Another soldier rummaged through Danny's satchel, extracting the typed documents and Oliver's negatives. Tate eyed them, mouth twisting in disgust. You journalists think you can decide what's best for the public. Sometimes they must be protected from truths that sow panic. He gestured for a nearby soldier to confiscate everything. As Danny was shoved to the ground, he glimpsed Parker trying to maintain composure. She locked eyes with him. Some quiet signal passed between them. Then, unexpectedly, an old caretaker from the barn area stepped in, feigning confusion, stumbling with a lantern that spilled oil, igniting a small flame on the dusty floor. Soldiers panicked, distracted by the sudden smoke and possible barn fire. In the chaos, Parker lunged, snatching a single negative from the soldier's hand. She tucked it into her coat. Another swirl of dust, and the caretaker yanked a side door open, beckoning the captives to flee. Disoriented, Tate barked orders to secure the perimeter, but the smoke gave Danny, Betty and Parker precious seconds. They scrambled out the side door, stumbling across the yard to Betty's truck. Shots rang out, bullets whining overhead. Parker slid into the back, Danny hopped in the passenger seat. Betty gunned the engine, tyres spewing gravel as they roared away. Soldiers tried to chase them on foot, but the swirling desert dust obscured the pursuit. In the rearview mirror, Danny saw Tate's furious silhouette receding into the haze. Once they were miles away, hearts pounding, they pulled the truck onto a sidetrack. Parker breathlessly produced that single negative she'd saved. It's not everything, but it's something. She rummaged in her pocket, revealing a crumpled note she'd scribbled about the chain of custody for this exotic metal. A hush fell. They'd lost most of their evidence, again, but they still had enough for a partial exposé, especially with Parker's direct testimony. We have to leave Roswell, Parker said quietly. Tate will lock the town down searching for us. The only way is to get these documents to an outside journalist or radio station that's not under their thumb. Betty swallowed, gazing at the desert horizon. If we vanish, who takes care of my father? The ranch? Danny placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll come back once this is out in the open, but right now, we either reveal it or watch it get buried. Parker nodded resolutely, glancing at the negative. Let's drive. I know a contact in Santa Fe who might help. And so they set off, headlights cutting through the twilight. The net around them had never been tighter, but they still had one path forward. Gather allies beyond Roswell's borders, show the world a glimmer of the truth, and hope it would spark the unstoppable question. What really happened in the desert sky? Night fell across the high desert as the battered pickup rumbled northward, carrying Danny Cole, Betty Navarro and Dr. Evangeline Parker. They kept to back roads, skirting major highways where military checkpoints might lurk. The hush was broken only by the whir of the engine and the trio's tense whispers about next steps. Parker clutched the negative and her partial notes like lifelines, conscious that each piece of evidence could vanish with one ill-timed ambush. They arrived in Santa Fe near midnight, parking behind a nondescript boarding house. Dr. Parker led them to a second-floor room lit dimly by a single lamp. Inside waited Hank Beringer, an ex-war correspondent turned freelance journalist known for publishing controversial exposés. Parker had met him briefly at a scientific conference and knew he had a penchant for stirring trouble. He listened wide-eyed as they recounted the Navarro's ranch debris, the Army's hush campaign, Oliver Grayson's photo negatives, and the persistent threats from Major Tate. Hank rubbed his stubble, glancing through the negative. "You sure about the unearthly angle?" he asked, sceptical. Parker offered a battered envelope containing her scribbled analysis of the debris' extraordinary properties. "I can't claim it's alien," she clarified, "but the composition defies known alloys. We suspect the official line is a cover for advanced tech. Possibly foreign, possibly beyond anything we've seen." Hank's eyes flickered. He sensed a goldmine of a story, yet fear tempered his excitement. This is bigger than a typical scoop. You realise the consequences if they've decided this is top secret. Betty exhaled. We do, but we can't let them intimidate the entire region. My father's ill. My ranch is crawling with men who bark classified at every turn. People deserve the truth. Hank suggested an immediate plan. Broadcast a shortwave radio bulletin at dawn to a friendly station, then telegram certain national newspapers. I know some folks in Chicago who might run it if I vouch for authenticity, he mused. That way, the story would break faster than the army could muzzle it. But the group also realised that if the army got wind of their location, they might be raided any moment. They set watch shifts, snatching brief hours of restless sleep. At dawn, the group used Hank's radio set to contact a small independent station on the west coast. Parker spoke carefully, summarising, "Unidentified debris, not consistent with weather balloons, suppressed by local authorities, eyewitness intimidation." The station's operator sounded astonished, promising to broadcast snippets soon. Meanwhile, Hank drafted a telegram to a Chicago desk editor, hinting at Roswell fiasco unravelling, unearthly materials confirmed. He left out direct mention of aliens to keep it credible. Then, the group braced themselves. If the cavalry was coming, it'd be soon. They didn't wait long. Mid-morning, a knock rattled the boarding house door, tension spiked. But when Betty cracked it open, it was Oliver Grayson, dusty and dishevelled. He'd hitchhiked after escaping another ransacking of his place, surmising they might have fled to Santa Fe. In his satchel was a battered film canister. "A second set of the best negatives," he wheezed, chest-heaving. "I stashed them in an abandoned well. Good thing, because men came at dawn, turning my place upside down." Oliver's images depicted not just the original streaking lights, but subsequent late-night captures of more patrol flights. Possibly the army searching or retrieving more fragments. "This is proof they're conducting operations out there," Oliver insisted. Hank carefully examined the negatives, nodding. "We can incorporate these into the telegram, combine them with Parker's data to form a cohesive angle. The army found advanced debris, is conducting covert retrieval, lying about it." Before they could finalise the story, Parker's face fell. She confided that while analysing the material at the base, she'd overheard rumours of a body, some alleged occupant discovered at the crash site. Officially, it was said to be a test dummy or a small monkey from a high-altitude experiment. Yet whispers suggested something more bizarre. "I can't prove it," she admitted, but the hush surrounding it was intense. Tate seemed fixated on sealing that aspect in particular. This possibility unsettled everyone, even Oliver, who thrived on outlandish theories. If a body, human or otherwise, existed, the cover-up stakes skyrocketed. "Now we're dealing with cosmic-level secrets," Oliver breathed. Betty, however, maintained composure. "We share only what we can verify. The rest remains rumour." They typed up a comprehensive piece, scanning the negatives for partial prints to attach. Hank proposed they physically deliver the story to a bigger city, like Denver, where the newspapers might risk printing it. But travelling was risky. Any attempt to cross the desert roads might result in capture. Meanwhile, the dawn shortwave broadcast had already teased a bombshell revelation from Roswell, setting the stage for a confrontation. "It's a gamble either way," Danny said. "If we stay put, Tate's men might swarm in. If we move, we might get intercepted. We need to outmaneuver them." Oliver suggested a decoy plan. He'd drive his beat-up car in one direction, making it conspicuous. The rest would slip out at dusk in another route, carrying the final story. With luck, the army or men in suits would chase Oliver's decoy, letting them escape. The group agreed. Time was too short to refine it further. That evening, tension ran thick as Oliver took off, windows down, radio blaring, heading south. About half an hour later, Danny, Betty, Hank and Parker quietly loaded into the truck and turned north. They stuck to back lanes, avoiding main highways. The desert twilight cloaked them. For a while all seemed calm. Then, near a lonely stretch, headlights appeared behind them, quickly closing in. "They found us," Betty muttered, pressing the gas. The pickup rattled dangerously. 2 black sedans flanked them, forcing them onto a dusty side path. Gunshots cracked. Parker ducked, cradling the precious documents. The truck wove between cacti and scrub brush, dust plumes swirling. Betty proved an adept driver, swerving at high speeds. The sedans lost traction in the shifting sand, sliding. The truck seized that gap, bounding over a small ravine. The chassis groaned, but held. In the rearview mirror, Danny saw the sedans come to a halt, one stuck in the gully. The men leaped out, shouting, but the truck kept rolling away. Through it all, Hank clutched the seat, white-knuckled, muttering curses under his breath. At last, they rejoined a firmer dirt road. The headlights behind them had vanished. Each occupant exhaled in relief. They pressed on under starlight, aiming for a safe haven rumoured to be a small printing press in the next county. Somebody who might put out a short-run publication, or at least forward their story to a national wire. The sense of dread lingered, but they had come too far to turn back. With every mile, the major pieces of the puzzle, fragments, photos, testimonies, burned in Danny's mind. If they succeeded, the official narrative might shatter. If they failed, the army would bury this story once and for all. In that moment, Danny realised how razor-thin their advantage was. They had the story that could change everything, but that truth carried a heavy cost. Recalling the crashed object's memory metal and the hush around rumoured occupants, he wondered if the public was truly ready. Yet he believed people deserved to decide for themselves, no matter how extraordinary. We're nearly there, he thought, gripping the satchel. Soon, they'd stand at a press that might finally echo the real events from the desert sky. But fate still had a few moves left in this dangerous game. Under the faint glow of dawn, the pickup rattled into the modest farm where a small independent press was rumoured to operate. An old barn doubled as a printing workspace. The owner, Miriam Solis, greeted them with wary eyes. She'd heard rumours of mysterious soldiers roaming the countryside, but agreed to help, if it truly was as urgent as they claimed. Dr. Parker, with all the seriousness an aerospace engineer could muster, affirmed they carried evidence of an unprecedented find and an active cover-up. Miriam sighed, sensing their desperation. "I can set type for a short print run," she said, "but distributing it widely might be tricky." They hauled in the battered documents and the partial negatives. Hank began writing a final introduction that framed the story for an outsider. He avoided hyperbole, sticking to verifiable points: ranch debris, memory metal, army intimidation, Parker's partial lab results, contradictory official statements, Oliver's photos. Meanwhile, Betty hovered near the door, scanning the horizon for any sign of approaching vehicles. Each time a dust swirl appeared, her heart kicked up a notch. Midway through typesetting, tyres crunched outside. Everyone froze. Betty peered through a crack in the barn door. A single black sedan parked in the yard. Out stepped Major Harold Tate, alone. He raised his hands as if to show no immediate threat, calling out calmly, "I know you're in there." Danny stepped out, jaw tight. The group formed a semicircle behind him: Betty, Parker, Hank and Miriam. Tate's eyes flicked over them, landing on Parker. "Doctor, I'd hoped you'd see reason. Your brilliance is wasted in these theatrics," she glared. "I've seen enough twisted orders. I won't be your pawn." The Major exhaled, then turned to Danny. "You're about to put the entire region at risk. Our country is not ready for this. Our enemies might exploit the technology." Tate's voice softened. "This crash, whatever it is, should remain under top security. Why feed the public hysteria? Why give foreign powers an edge?" Danny clenched his fists. "Because the truth belongs to everyone, not just the army. People have died for lesser secrets, and your men threatened innocent ranchers who stumbled on it. That's not how we do things in a free country." Tate's mask of composure cracked slightly. "You think it's that simple? The moment this story goes out, we lose control. We can't control who else might come sniffing around, maybe sabotage or weaponize the find. Sometimes deception is the only shield." Parker stepped forward, eyes fierce. "What if the technology you're shielding has moral or cosmic ramifications? Should a handful of men decide for the entire planet?" A tense silence fell. Tate drew a deep breath. "I can't let you publish this, but I respect your convictions. If you step away, I'll ensure no harm befalls you or your families." He glanced at Betty, offering a glimmer of sympathy. "That includes your father, Ms. Navarro." The threat was implicit. Defy him, and all bets are off. The group exchanged grim looks. A wave of doubt flickered in Danny's mind. Was the truth worth the potential blowback? But then Betty's voice, quavering but resolute, broke the hush. "We've seen how your men bullied an old rancher. We know you confiscated the debris. If you hush us now, what about tomorrow or next year? This story is bigger than any one of us." Parker lifted the manila envelope containing the last negative. "Major, we're not traitors. We love this country. But burying this secret fosters paranoia and control. People deserve transparency. Maybe it fosters more caution. Perhaps it spurs unity if it's truly otherworldly." Tate's expression hardened. The conflict was ideological, irreconcilable. He extended a hand. "Give me the envelope. Walk away from all this." Time felt suspended. Danny recalled how he started this as a fresh reporter, stumbling onto an odd debris story. Now he stood on the brink of shaping national headlines with revelations that could alter how humans view their place under the sky. Could he trust that the Army's paternalism was right? Or was it a smokescreen for consolidating power? The moment weighed heavily. He sensed the ghosts of the thunderstorm's illusions, the memory metal glinting, the hush in the desert that seemed to hold its breath. He turned to the press owner, Miriam Solis, who was trembling but determined. She whispered, "If we do this, we do it now." Hank took the typed copy to the press machine. With a screech of hinges, he began inking plates. Parker clutched the negative. Tate stepped forward, voice raised. "Stop! I won't let you do this. You'll regret." But he paused as Parker pointed out how many copies they could churn out in an hour. Even if Tate destroyed the press now, some copies might slip out, or the negative might be mailed. The cat was out of the bag. Suddenly another vehicle rumbled in, kicking up dust. Out leapt Oliver Grayson, wearing an exuberant grin. "I led more army men on a wild goose chase, circled around to help." He toted a spare camera, battered but functional, possibly for capturing any final confrontation. Major Tate, pinned between them, realized his position. Physically outnumbered, his backup misled. He glared, fists clenched, but couldn't forcibly stop the printing. He might shoot, but that would cause a scandal. The standoff ended with Tate stepping back, face pale with anger. "You're making a mistake, but I won't kill you over it. When chaos breaks from your revelations, remember this moment." In the tension-laden barn, the press whirred. Sheets came out bearing headlines: "Unexplained debris," "Scientists denounce balloon claims." The story included Parker's partial analysis, Oliver's photo of strange lights, Betty's testimony about the ranch, Danny's chronicle of intimidation. Only a small local print run, but enough copies to mail to key radio stations, newspapers or allies. The group, fueled by relief and adrenaline, prepped envelopes. They distribute them discreetly, ensuring the news spread beyond Roswell's sphere of control. Major Tate stared, chest heaving. No bullets flew, no arrests occurred. He simply gave a final glare and turned away. The black sedan roared off. Possibly he'd craft a new strategy or blame incompetent subordinates. But at least for now, the honest story would surface. Danny's chest tightened with both triumph and a pang of worry. The Army might spin fresh narratives, might brand them cranks or seditionists. Still, if the seeds of doubt were planted, public scrutiny might keep the Army from fully smothering the truth. Within days, a handful of radio hosts read excerpts from the newly minted pamphlet on air. A few out-of-state journalists visited, intrigued but cautious. The Army responded with more official statements about advanced weather balloons, Project Mogul, or test dummies. The broader press remained uncertain. Some newspapers printed small pieces referencing contradictory Roswell reports, but larger outlets hesitated. The official line overshadowed the local pamphlet's claims, leaving the general public divided. For some, Roswell became a fleeting curiosity. For others, a symbol of suppressed truth. Nevertheless, the conspirators, Danny, Betty, Parker, Oliver, secured small victories. A few investigators believed them, quietly gathering more evidence. Parker found a new job under an assumed name, continuing to speak out in coded ways. Betty's father improved in health once the ranch was left alone. Oliver dropped out of sight soon after, rumoured to be trekking the deserts in search of hidden crash remains. Danny kept writing, penning long articles about the Roswell affair for any magazine or newspaper that would listen. Reception was lukewarm, but seeds of doubt grew. As months turned into years, the mania died down. The official story grew codified, taught as case closed. Yet in Roswell's dusty corners, whispered recollections persisted. Some nights, old ranchers told grandchildren about the day government trucks hauled away metal that defied logic. Dr. Parker, in an interview decades later, would recall her fleeting contact with that impossible alloy and how it changed her perspective on Earth's place in the cosmos. Danny Cole's battered pamphlet copies would circulate among UFO enthusiasts, fueling endless speculation. One evening, not long after the press run, Danny returned to the Navarro ranch. The storm clouds had rolled in again. thunder echoing across the desert. At the fence line, Betty joined him, each leaning on a post. They remembered that first night, the uncanny flash overhead, the ground shaking. Beneath the star-flecked sky, they wondered if the truth ever fully emerged. Did the exotic debris come from beyond Earth? Or was it some hush-hush tech tested by shadowy labs? Did the occupant rumours hold weight? They might never know, but they had tried. They had pried open a corner of secrecy, leaving a crack for future revelations. In the hush of that desert evening, an odd hush reminiscent of the calm before a storm, they felt the weight of what they'd ignited. The official narrative might stand for decades, but the real story lived on in these few who had touched the impossible. Echoes in the desert sky lingered, beyond disclaimers, and for those who cared to look, the dusty roads near Roswell still whispered that something extraordinary once fell from above, and the effort to hide it was equally extraordinary. In the end, the story's impact was measured less by immediate media frenzy than by the subtle shift in public imagination. The seeds of suspicion and wonder blossomed into modern UFO lore. Others would pick up the thread, investigating anew. Through it all, the desert wind carried the memory of lightning-scorched nights and metals that wouldn't break, a silent testament that sometimes, in the quiet corners of the earth, bigger truths loom than any single cover-up can fully silence. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sleep Theories, the channel where we bring you immersive stories designed to wind down your evening. Before we get started, please drop a comment telling us where in the world you're tuning in from, what time it is where you are, and, if you'd like, how your day has been. Also, if you enjoy our deep dives into mysteries and conspiracies, don't forget to subscribe to Sleep Theories. Tonight's tale is titled Shadows Under the Terminal, a conspiracy thriller, investigative mystery drawing on the many rumours surrounding the Denver International Airport, DIA. Our protagonist, Avery Barnes, is an independent journalist who, with the help of DIA insider Miguel Varela and art historian Dr. Valerie Ng, faces the official denial from PR manager Rosalind Carter and the lurking presence of Marcus Knight, who might be orchestrating covert expansions deep beneath the airport. Join us as we unravel what truly lies under those runways and behind those symbolic murals. Let's begin. Avery Barnes carefully navigated the bustling terminal of Denver International Airport, clutching a small digital recorder in one hand and a tangle of press passes in the other. She had come ostensibly to cover a routine story about passenger satisfaction and the airport's new automated train system. But her real reason for being here was an itch in the back of her mind, a swirl of rumours, from suspicious murals depicting apocalyptic scenes to talk of hidden bunkers. She'd glimpsed swirling claims online about the DIA being a front for a New World Order base, replete with deep subterranean facilities. Most mainstream outlets dismiss such chatter as nonsense, but Avery was determined to see if there was anything more than smoke. As she walked, the overhead announcements droned about flights departing for Los Angeles or Chicago. In her line of sight, families lugged suitcases, business travellers strode with purposeful steps, and the background hum of rolling luggage formed a mild soundtrack. Overlooking it all was the airport's distinctive peaked roof, reminiscent of the Rocky Mountains. The modern architecture gave DIA an airy feel, but Avery noticed how even the bright lights and open spaces couldn't quell the sense of something off. Maybe it was the hush of security cameras overhead, or the sheer sprawl of the place, with corridors that seemed to lead nowhere. Her contact, Miguel Varela, had sent her a cryptic message the previous week. "If you want real evidence, come to DIA. I'll show you some locked-up expansions." She hoped he'd appear. She had zero illusions about how risky it might be for him, a long-time maintenance worker going on record about unusual construction sites. While waiting, she meandered toward the iconic murals near the baggage claim. She had read about them. Online conspiracies pointed to their alleged portrayal of global catastrophe, secret symbols, even cryptic references to Freemasonry. At first glance, they looked vibrant and whimsical, depicting scenes of children, doves, and strangely martial figures in others. Hardly definitive proof of a hidden agenda, but Avery felt a small chill. Something about the art was too surreal for an airport. A tap on her shoulder startled her. A young man in a plain uniform whispered, "Ms. Barnes." She turned, meeting Miguel Varela's anxious gaze. He beckoned her to follow him away from the main corridor. They ducked into a side hallway seldom used by passengers. The overhead fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow on the beige walls, the hum of an HVAC system echoing faintly. Leaning close, Miguel explained in a low voice, "We keep building expansions that go nowhere. Sealed corridors, huge subterranean sections not on official maps. Management is hush-hush. They tell us not to question, but it's bigger than standard baggage systems." Avery's pulse quickened. She asked for specifics. Miguel described how, during overnight shifts, entire shipments of unmarked crates arrived at restricted docks. He'd also found references to level -4 in some internal documents, yet the official blueprint only listed 2 basement levels. Rumours among staff suggested a labyrinth of bunkers or secure facilities. "Some say it's for a catastrophic event. Others blame a secret organisation," Miguel said with a dry chuckle. But the fear in his eyes was real. As Avery scribbled notes, A sudden hush fell when a security guard rounded the corner. They both fell silent, feigning normal conversation. The guard passed by with only a nod, presumably noticing nothing amiss. After that brief scare, Miguel said he had a break in about an hour. He'd try to slip her into a maintenance corridor that might reveal part of the subterranean expansions. She agreed to meet him near a staff cafeteria, mind bristling with curiosity. With that, they parted. Needing more background, Avery strolled to an out-of-the-way lounge where she set up her laptop to browse additional leads. She found references to the infamous Blue Mustang statue outside. Locals nicknamed it Blucifer after an accident that cost its sculptor's life. Then there was the Masonic dedication plaque with mention of a New World Airport Commission, fueling conspiratorial chatter about an NWO. Every piece fit the mosaic of hush-hush expansions and weird symbols. Her email pinged. A note from an art historian doctor, Valerie Ung, responding to Avery's inquiry about the airport's mural designs. She offered to meet soon to discuss the symbolic iconography. Good. Another puzzle piece in place. Time passed, and Avery made her way to the staff cafeteria. True to his word, Miguel arrived, wearing an uneasy expression. Quietly he guided her through a corridor marked "Authorized Personnel Only." As they passed locked doors, the environment took on a more utilitarian look. Concrete floors, dull overhead lamps. No travellers in sight, just occasional workers or carts. At a certain door with a coded keypad, Miguel typed in a code. The door hissed open, revealing an industrial staircase descending into a faintly lit space. "Down here is part of the old baggage system everyone jokes about," Miguel whispered. "But deeper, there's sealed expansions. I've only glimpsed them." Avery's heart thumped. She carefully followed him down the steps. The air grew cooler, the hum of machinery more pronounced. They reached a wide corridor with overhead pipes and cables. Miguel led her to a set of double doors labelled "Restricted, No Entry." He pressed his ear to it, then motioned for Avery to do the same. The hush behind the doors felt charged, as though a large empty chamber lay beyond. He quietly tested the handle. Locked, of course. "Any chance you can get me inside?" Avery asked, adrenaline spiking. Miguel shook his head. "Not without triggering alarms. But I saw large shipments vanish behind these doors at night." Avery snapped discreet photos, her camera's flash turned off. She noticed a small symbol etched near the door's corner, a stylized pyramid with a single eye. It was no official airport mark. Her breath caught. Could this be evidence of a bigger conspiracy? She put a gentle hand on the door, imagining the subterranean space behind it. "I suspect deeper passageways lead from here," Miguel said softly. "Word is, staff used to joke about bunkers for VIPs during Doomsday, but management calls them nonsense." Their covert exploration ended abruptly when footsteps echoed from further down the corridor. Startled, they retreated, hurrying back up the stairs. At the top, Miguel parted with a whispered, "Be careful." They watch everything. Then he slipped away, presumably returning to his normal tasks, leaving Avery with her mind racing. She quickly made her way to a more public area, melding with the crowd of passengers to avoid suspicion. That evening, Avery sat in a corner of the airport's main concourse reviewing her notes. 1,000 questions whirled in her mind. She typed a quick message to Dr. Valerie Ung, setting up a meeting for the next day to examine the mural's hidden or symbolic references. Meanwhile, she planned to request official comment from the airport's PR manager, Rosalind Carter, though she suspected only corporate spin in response. As she gazed at the busy travellers rushing to gates, she felt a swirl of paranoia. Who else might have noticed her wandering? Could there be watchers behind those tinted windows of the security offices? One thing was clear. Denver International Airport's rumoured mysteries weren't mere online jokes. Something truly lay beneath the terminal floors, something so guarded that even staff like Miguel only gleaned glimpses. Avery intended to find out precisely what. She could feel the tension, an unstoppable curiosity colliding with an institutional desire to keep it all under wraps. Folding her laptop, she steeled herself for the next day's challenges, half excited, half uneasy about what further secrets she might unearth in those labyrinthine corridors. Early the next morning, Avery Barnes prepared herself to meet Rosalind Carter, the Denver International Airport's senior public relations manager. She had arranged an official request for comment about new expansions, though her real goal was to see how Carter responded to inquiries about suspicious underground projects. The appointed time was just after 9 a.m. in a glass-walled office overlooking part of the terminal. Avery, sporting her best friendly journalist demeanour, approached the security desk, stating her appointment. A short elevator ride whisked her up to a suite of executive offices. Rosalind Carter greeted Avery with a polished smile, her posture impeccable, eyes keen. She led Avery into a sleek conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the vast runways and the iconic white tents of DIA's main terminal. Carter offered a seat, poured a small cup of coffee, and inquired politely about Avery's interest in writing an article. Avery explained she was focusing on the airport's continuing expansions and addressing some online rumours. Carter's tone stayed cordial, but had an undercurrent of practiced deflection. She spoke about ongoing improvements to enhance passenger experience, referencing new gates, updated baggage systems. When Avery gently probed about levels beneath the terminal or sealed corridors, Carter let out a short laugh. "We're aware of the conspiracies floating around, bunkers, secret societies, but truly, there's nothing beyond standard sub-basements for baggage handling and mechanical equipment." She flashed a perfect PR grin. "The airport is big, yes, but we only close off sections for maintenance or safety reasons, not for anything clandestine." Avery pressed a bit further. "What about employees who claim to have seen sealed expansions or shipments at odd hours?" Carter's smile tightened. She insisted that any off-hour shipments were typical supplies for ongoing construction or large-scale vendor deliveries. "We operate 24/7, Ms. Barnes. We have to. This is an international airport. That might look suspicious from the outside, but it's routine." She maintained impeccable composure, never letting a crack show. Her eyes, however, flickered with a trace of caution. Finally, Avery inquired about the airport's rumoured time capsule or Masonic plaque, referencing a New World Airport Commission. Carter explained in clipped monotone. That was a local civic group from the 1990s, not some secret society. People read too much into a harmless plaque. The quickness of her answer felt rehearsed. She ended with a polite wrap-up. "I'm sure your readers will find the real expansions quite ordinary once your piece is done. Let me know if you need more official statements." Avery concluded the meeting with a forced smile, suspecting Carter had meticulously avoided any direct responses to the deeper allegations. Leaving the executive suite, Avery felt both frustration and renewed suspicion. Carter's polished disclaimers were exactly what one might expect if the airport indeed had hidden compartments. She decided to reconnect with Miguel soon, to see if he could give her more tangible leads. Meanwhile, she had an afternoon appointment with Dr. Valerie Ung to discuss the mural's alleged symbolism. She hurried across the main concourse, scanning the crowds for watchers. A creeping sense of being followed nagged at her, though she spotted no one specifically. She chalked it up to paranoia. Dr. Valerie Ung suggested they meet in a quiet corner of the terminal near a large mural. With lines of travellers passing by, Avery found the professor, a petite woman wearing glasses, flipping through a folder of reference images. Dr. Ung greeted Avery with a handshake and wasted no time in pointing out certain details in the largest mural. Bold, dreamlike images of children from various cultures, a figure that seemed to represent war or destruction, arcs of colour signifying peace overshadowing conflict. Many interpret these as allegories for global unity after strife, Dr. Ung said, but some see coded references to a new world order rising from chaos. The painter's intention is ambiguous. He did talk about bridging differences, yet conspiracists fixate on the militant shapes or the anguished faces in the background. Avery studied the artwork's corners, noticing images of extinct animals, weeping mothers, and a menacing figure in a gas mask. It does look unnerving in parts, more intense than typical airport art. Dr. Ung nodded. Yes, a strange choice for a public terminal. Possibly the airport's commissioning board wanted to provoke thought. But I do see curious symbols. A stylized letter resembling the Freemason square and compass, hidden within a swirl, subtle enough to be unconfirmed. Some lines do read as coded messages if you look from certain angles. They stepped to the next mural, which depicted a peaceful scene of children celebrating around a blossoming tree. Dr. Ung pointed at a portion of the painting's corner. Here, the initials NDIA. Officially, it stands for the artist's note referencing native Western art or something, but conspiracy folks tie it to the New World Airport Commission. Avery's mind churned. She recalled Carter's denial about that group. Everything felt connected by faint threads. She asked if Dr. Ung believed the rumours about secret societies. The professor shrugged. Hard to say. Artistic coincidences happen, but the sheer volume of strange references does give me pause. Possibly a sponsor had a strong symbolic intention. That's the missing piece. Who guided these commissions? After analysing the final mural, Dr. Ung parted ways, leaving Avery with a deeper sense that the airport's art might be more than random. Avery typed quick notes, references to NWA, covert Masonic or Illuminati hints, talk of a future global cataclysm. It all dovetailed with the rumour of subterranean bunkers built for an elite group prepping for some meltdown. She stepped away, noticing how passers-by took photos of the murals, unaware of their alleged deeper significance. By late afternoon, Avery's phone buzzed. A short text from Miguel. Meet me at 8 p.m, staff door B19. I found something else. She felt a thrill of anticipation. Possibly new evidence about the sealed expansions. But caution soared too. She suspected Carter or some higher power might be vigilant. Already she'd glimpsed a uniformed guard following her for a moment earlier, though it might have been routine. She mentally prepared to keep a low profile. Before the evening meet, Avery decided to do more reconnaissance. She strolled near the iconic giant horse statue. Blue Mustang, infamous for its glowing red eyes. People joked it was cursed or ominous. Up close, the statue's size and intense gaze were disconcerting. She circled it, half hoping to find a hidden panel or code. Nothing stood out, but she couldn't shake the feeling that even that sculpture was part of a bigger tapestry, an attempt to signal something deeper about the airport's underlying purpose. Finally, night fell. The airport's bustling crowds thinned somewhat, though DIA never truly sleeps. Avery found her way to staff door B19, a poorly lit area near a lesser-used terminal hallway. Checking no one was around, she loitered casually, phone in hand. Right on time, Miguel slipped from the shadows, motioning her inside. Fear prickled in Avery's stomach. This was stepping over a line. Trespassing, possibly. Yet the thirst for truth overshadowed caution. As the door clicked shut behind them, overhead fluorescent lights buzzed. She sensed the weight of unseen watchers. No turning back now. She followed Miguel deeper, preparing for the confrontation with real, hidden expansions or whatever secrets the airport's powers sought to bury. Under the flickering hallway lights, Avery Barnes slipped into the restricted corridor behind Miguel Varela, heart hammering at the risk. They both wore subdued clothing, hoping to pass for routine staff if spotted. The hush in these halls was eerie, far from the bustling main terminal. The echo of their footsteps seemed magnified, every scuff on the polished floor a jarring note in the quiet. Yet they pressed on, guided by Miguel's knowledge of certain door codes and maintenance routes. The corridor twisted downward, the environment gradually losing the crisp corporate facade. Exposed pipes, open wiring. They skirted caged areas holding large mechanical units and stacks of building supplies. The overhead hum from fluorescent tubes became more sporadic, some flickering or half dead. The expansions start below sub-level 2, Miguel whispered. Officially it's just more baggage infrastructure, but I've seen hints of deeper shafts sealed with heavy blast doors. Avery nodded, adrenaline flooding her system. At a nondescript steel door, Miguel halted. A short keypad glowed beside it. He typed a code. To Avery's relief, the light clicked green, and the door slid open with a mechanical hiss. The air inside carried a faint chemical tang, reminiscent of fresh construction or sanitized surfaces. They stepped through, the door sliding shut behind them. Ahead, a broad hallway spread out, lined with crates labelled with bland descriptions. Electrical components, ventilation, stock. The floor was newly tiled, the walls unpainted concrete. It was the kind of place that felt half-finished. Miguel paused, brow furrowed. This corridor's new. Even a month ago it wasn't here. Avery marvelled at the scale. The ceiling soared above, industrial lighting mounted in neat rows. A sign read Section 4B, as if referencing a discrete zone. She snapped a few covert photos with her phone. Each step echoed, the hush unnerving. Eventually they reached a large metal door. It bore a sign that read, High Security, No Access, along with a card reader lock. Miguel frowned. I don't have clearance for that. He tried an older code to no avail. Avery approached the small window slit, trying to peer in. She made out dim overhead lighting, but no sign of activity. Possibly a massive chamber beyond. They pressed on, following side corridors branching off the main hall. Over time they discovered a locked gate leading to what looked like a vertical shaft with an elevator platform. Lights inside glowed faintly. So, an elevator to an even lower level, Avery guessed. Miguel nodded, lips set. We never had mention of a third sub-level in the official plans. She quietly documented the elevator's existence. The deeper they went, the more convinced she became that these expansions were about more than baggage or typical airport systems. Suddenly, footsteps approached from around a corner. Miguel gasped, motioning Avery to hide. They ducked behind a cluster of crates. Two figures in security uniforms walked past, engaged in quiet conversation. From the snippet Avery overheard something about timing for the next supply intake, and Knight wants the east corridor sealed by next month. She tensed. Knight? Could that be a reference to Marcus Knight, the rumoured big shot who oversaw hush-hush government contracting? She wanted to follow them, but the risk was too high. After they moved on, Miguel released a breath. They must be top-level security. Regular staff rarely come down here. They resumed exploring, quickly but carefully. Avery found doorways labelled storage, ventilation control, server node. Some opened easily, revealing large server racks or mechanical piping. Others were locked tight. In a small maintenance closet they discovered a blueprint pinned to the wall. It was partially covered by a coffee-stained sheet, but when they lifted it, they saw a rough schematic referencing S4L3 access shafts, indicating multiple sub-level connections. The blueprint extended beyond the known basement levels, indicating large open areas labelled reserved. Avery's heart pounded. This was near proof of a massive subterranean facility. She snapped photos with trembling excitement. Real evidence. A beep from Miguel's phone broke the hush. Startled, he fumbled to silence it. Too late. Footsteps again. Close. They extinguished the small overhead closet light, crouching behind a large shelf. A figure stepped into the closet, shining a flashlight. They froze, hearts in throats. The flashlight beams swept across pipes, nearly grazing Avery's foot. Thankfully, the figure didn't notice them, perhaps assuming the beep was random noise. The beam lingered, then retreated. The door closed. Silence returned, but adrenaline left them shaking. They realised they had to retreat soon or risk capture. Before leaving, they uncovered an old crate with cryptic labelling. Emergency ration, Series G. plus a date years in the future. That spiked Avery's intrigue. Who stores rations labelled for use years away, as though planning for a doomsday scenario? She snapped another photo. It was almost too bizarre. The idea that the airport might be a hub for an elite survival plan was starting to feel less outlandish. They made for the corridor exit, but along the way, a keypad beeped from ahead. They ducked into a side recess, turning off their flashlights. 2 more security guards, each carrying sidearms, strode through. Avery recognised one from a distance. Rosalind Carter, a PR manager in an unmarked security uniform. She wore a stern expression, murmuring in an urgent tone to a colleague, "We can't let them leak any of these expansions." "Knight is already reviewing the next shipments." The colleague responded, "We'll lock down all staff access. They can't wander in." Carter nodded, continuing down the hall. The revelation that Carter herself patrolled these restricted areas, wearing a different persona, hammered home how big this cover-up was. Avery and Miguel huddled, exchanging a silent, wide-eyed look. They had to get out fast. Slipping quietly back to the door they'd used to enter, they typed the code and returned to the more standard basement corridor. No one seemed to notice them emerging. Re-entering the main staff areas, they parted ways quickly. Avery took a moment to gather her wits among the normal swirl of the airport's baggage zone. The difference in atmosphere was jarring. Above ground, travellers scurried, shops displayed souvenirs, a facade of normalcy overshadowing the hush below. That night, Avery holed up in a budget motel near the airport, transferring the photos and notes from her phone onto a secure drive. She typed a summary: extensive sub-level expansions, elevator shafts leading to unlisted floors, crates of emergency rations, presence of armed security beyond normal staff. Meanwhile, Carter's secret involvement, referencing Knight's instructions. The puzzle was forming: an advanced shelter or a command centre for some higher power, possibly linked to the rumoured New World Order conspiracies. The question was how to confirm the final details. Miguel texted her, anxious. "We took big risks. Carter is suspicious. Don't contact me for a while." She replied with thanks, acknowledging the need for caution. Next, she emailed Dr. Ung a cryptic clue about the expansions, inquiring if the airport's time capsule or Masonic references tie in with large-scale bunkers. Dr. Ung responded that the time capsule's plaque included symbols reminiscent of those found in certain clandestine groups, but needed more direct evidence to connect it to the expansions. The path forward was treacherous, but with real photographic proof in her hands, Avery felt unstoppable. She planned to contact a small independent news site or blog to release a preliminary story. However, she knew she might face immediate backlash or sabotage if she published too soon. She decided instead to attempt a final infiltration, one that could gather conclusive video footage. She'd also see if, in the meantime, she could track down references to Marcus Knight, the rumoured puppet master. Resolving to hold her nerve, she settled in for a restless sleep, half dreaming of corridors beneath the airport, where every locked door concealed a piece of a grand conspiracy. Tomorrow, she would push further, or risk losing the chance to unmask the truth entirely. Morning brought Avery Barnes a subdued sense of urgency. Over coffee at the motel, she reviewed her phone notifications. A message from Dr. Valerie Ung, offering to meet at the airport's infamous time capsule marker. Another from an anonymous address read simply, "Be careful, they know." The short note cast a chill over her. Possibly a friend of Miguel or a concerned insider. She exhaled slowly, steeling herself for another day in the belly of the beast. Returning to DIA, she found it as busy as ever. Travellers hustling, overhead announcements echoing. She kept her camera gear discreetly stowed in a shoulder bag. Dr. Ung awaited near a subdued corner of the main concourse, close to a stone marker with a Masonic symbol. That marker, Avery recalled, was said to mention the New World Airport Commission. Conspiracy forums fixated on it, believing it indicated a hidden sponsor behind the airport's design. Dr. Ung greeted her with a polite nod, then quietly pointed out the inscriptions. The plaque indeed read, "Dedicated to the people of Colorado, the New World Airport Commission," referencing a date in the mid-1990s. The Masonic square and compass insignia sat in the corner. A time capsule was rumoured to lie beneath it, to be opened decades later. While passers-by strolled by without a second glance, Avery snapped photos, Dr. Ung providing commentary in a low tone. Masonic influences do appear now and then in public projects, but usually it's overshadowed by typical civic stuff. Yet the phrase New World Airport Commission is truly odd. No official record of that group existing outside DIA documentation. It does feed the speculation that some elite collective quietly guided the project. She touched the plaque lightly. Some say inside the time capsule are hints of this global or New World Order plan. Avery's mind connected the dots. Hidden expansions, Masonic references, hush-hush shipments. She asked Doctor if the symbol matched some of the shapes from the murals. The professor nodded. Yes, it's the same stylized geometry. The artists used shapes reminiscent of Masonic angles in background corners. Possibly a coincidence, but in total, it's suspicious. Dr. Ung then offered a slender envelope. I dug up older press photos from the airport's grand opening. Some shots show the site with deeper excavation than official stories mention. Might be relevant. Avery thanked her, glimpsing the black and white prints of huge pits, seemingly deeper than typical infrastructure demands. More fuel for her story. Their quiet meeting ended abruptly when a uniformed guard approached, politely but firmly asking them to clear the area for staff cleaning. A mild excuse, but Avery recognised they might be monitored. She parted ways with Doctor, promising to share any final revelations. The professor told her to be cautious. Rumours circulated among local academics about how persistent investigators into DIA's mysteries sometimes found themselves blacklisted or visited by officials. Avery ducked into a restroom, checking her phone. Another message from Miguel. I can't talk more. Carter's men are on to me, but meet me at the far end of Concourse C at 10 p.m. if you want the final route to the sub-level. Night might be here tonight. She swallowed, nerves flaring. So this was it. The final infiltration. The attempt to catch Marcus Knight in the act. She suspected the conspirators were stepping up security. If she got caught, it could be catastrophic. Her heart pounded, but if she truly wanted to blow the lid off the subterranean expansions, she needed that conclusive footage or direct confrontation. Throughout the afternoon, she prepared quietly, clearing memory space on her camera, backing up her existing photos to a remote cloud, drafting a short article skeleton in case she had to publish quickly. She arranged for a trusted blogger contact to receive her evidence if she went offline. The sense of a final stand weighed on her. Meanwhile, a recurring paranoia dogged her. Any uniformed staff might be an agent of Carter or Knight. She tried not to meet eyes with passing security, maintaining a normal facade by sitting in a coffee shop or strolling the terminal shops. Evening fell, the terminal's hustle gradually thinning. The overhead lights dimmed in certain sections. Avery kept close watch on the time. At 9:45 p.m, she slipped toward Concourse C, aware that late flights still disembarked, but traffic was quieter. She found an out-of-the-way corridor near some service rooms. At 10 sharp, footsteps approached. A tense-faced Miguel glancing over his shoulder. He whispered, "We don't have much time. Knight is rumoured to do an inspection or meeting in the sub-lower expansions. Let's move." He led her through an employees-only corridor. This time they bypassed a standard checkpoint by following a narrow passage behind mechanical piping. Overhead fans whirred in a subdued roar, the temperature dropping a bit. They surfaced at a security door with a numeric keypad. Miguel typed in new codes, presumably gleaned from some updated staff log. The door beeped. They slipped in. Darkness reigned, lit only by an emergency bulb. Avery's heart hammered with the knowledge that any camera footage might blow her entire investigation wide open. Descend. The corridor led to a freight elevator. Miguel produced a keycard, scanning it. By some stroke of luck, it worked. The elevator shuddered downward. The panel displayed no floor numbers, just a blank readout. As they descended, the hush thickened. Only the hum of machinery thrummed in the background. When the doors slid open, they stepped into a wide sub-level corridor, quite unlike the standard basement. The space was furbished with advanced electronics and thick cables running overhead. The overhead lights had a faint flicker. Avery quietly turned on her camera, hoping to capture raw footage. Miguel pointed to a far corner with large metallic doors. That's a main security checkpoint deeper in. Knight might be inside. He motioned her to keep quiet. They advanced slowly, each step almost painfully loud. The corridor branched. They glimpsed crates labelled sustainment stock stacked high. Another sign read, Personnel Lockers, Restricted. A series of tinted windows faced an interior chamber, dimly lit, where a handful of black uniformed guards conversed. Among them, Avery recognised the silhouette of Rosalind Carter. She was in heated discussion with a tall man in a sharp suit, Marcus Knight. Though she'd never seen him in person, his posture radiated authority. He tapped a folder on a table. The pair looked tense. Miguel and Avery hid behind a partially open door, camera angled to record. Over the quiet hum they caught fragments. We need to expedite Phase 2. We can't risk further leaks. Knight's voice was low, commanding. Carter responded, We're sealing all sub-level access soon. That meddling journalist is here, but we'll intercept if necessary. The mention of journalist pinned Avery's heart with dread. They definitely knew about her. She kept filming, controlling her breathing. Then a beep and footsteps. A guard approached from behind, having spotted or sensed movement. Avery and Miguel froze, adrenaline spiking. The guard barked, Hey! In the split second of panic, Miguel hissed, Run! Avery clutched her camera, pivoting down a side corridor. The guard gave chase. Miguel tried to block him, pushing a rolling cart into his path. The guard stumbled, cursing. More voices shouted. Carter and Knight might have heard the commotion. Alarms beeped, a swirling red light illuminating the corridor. Avery found a door half ajar, darted inside. Another hallway, possibly an emergency exit route, leading to a flight of metal stairs. Behind her, footsteps pounded. She glimpsed a second guard, weapon drawn. The hush now overshadowed by harsh warnings. She took the stairs, hearing shouts to stop. Ears pounding, she pressed the camera to her chest, determined to keep the footage safe. The staircase wound up. She prayed it led to an exit, or at least an unguarded zone in the standard basement. She heard no sign of Miguel behind her. Fear clenched her stomach. He'd likely drawn the security away. She had to trust he'd find a way out. At last, she emerged into a smaller mechanical room. The door from there to the main baggage level was locked from the outside. She rummaged quickly, found a crowbar near a tool rack. Jamming it into the door's edge, she pried it open with a grunt. The metal screeched. She darted through, slamming it behind her, then found herself in the standard baggage zone. Workers there stared in confusion. She dashed into the open corridor, blending with a small crowd of late-shift staff. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but none recognised her as an intruder. She slowed to a brisk walk, heart in her throat. The alarm behind her soon died away. With surprising ease, she reached the passenger area. She discovered a cluster of travellers milling around a late flight. Security apparently hadn't locked down the entire airport yet. She took advantage, calmly heading to an exit, camera hidden under a jacket. Night air greeted her outside. She hopped into a taxi, telling the driver to step on it. Her entire body trembled from adrenaline. She had video footage, recordings of Knight's words, glimpses of the sub-level expansions. Possibly more than enough to confirm a major cover-up. But the cost was high. Miguel's fate worried her, and the conspirators might attempt a full meltdown to kill the story. In the midnight hush, Avery Barnes sat in her cheap motel room, laptop open, camera cables snaking from it. Her pulse still hammered from the infiltration. Shakily, she reviewed the footage. Shaky images of the corridor expansions, the crates labelled sustainment stock, and the glimpse of Rosalind Carter with a commanding figure, likely Marcus Knight, discussing Phase 2 and leaks. Despite the frantic camera movements, the content was unmistakable. This was real, tangible evidence that the Denver International Airport had advanced subterranean expansions well beyond typical infrastructure. The references to Phase 2 implied something deeper, some looming next step. She typed up a summary, carefully stringing the data together with pictures from earlier infiltration attempts, plus the blueprint she photographed. On a second phone, she tried calling Miguel. No response. Fear gnawed at her. As dawn broke, she reached out to a small but reputable online investigative news site, Watchlight Chronicles, run by a friend, Petra, who specialised in underreported stories. She emailed the preliminary article and attachments. Petra responded swiftly, half incredulous, half excited. "This is huge. We'll run it if you confirm authenticity, but be ready for blowback," the message read. Avery recognised it might put her in crosshairs. She typed back a calm acceptance. The story needed to see daylight. Sure enough, within hours of finalising the piece, Avery's phone lit up with calls from unknown numbers. She ignored them. Then a text from a local mainstream reporter friend asked if she'd truly found secret bunkers. The rumour was out, though not from mainstream outlets yet. Avery decided to do one better. She'd hold an informal press conference or a streaming session the next morning from a location near the airport. This direct approach might force DIA officials to respond publicly. She found a cafe near downtown Denver that offered a private back room. She scheduled an early press gathering, inviting a handful of local bloggers, small radio hosts, and a couple of bigger outlets who might be curious. She kept it low profile, but word travelled in certain circles. That night she barely slept, half expecting a black SUV to appear, whisking her away. But no one came. Perhaps Carter and Knight were unprepared for how fast Avery moved. Early next day, about a dozen folks gathered in that cafe's back room. Tired baristas served coffee to half-awake reporters. Avery pinned up a small selection of printed photos, the sealed expansions, the blueprint referencing sub-level S-4, the crates labelled suspiciously. She played a short video clip on a projector showing the corridor infiltration, though it was dimly lit and shaky. The audio snippet capturing Knight's mention of Phase 2 in hushed tones drew hushed murmurs from the watchers. A local TV cameraman quietly filmed. Some gasped at the mention of potential doomsday bunkers. A radio host asked if she was worried about legal ramifications. Avery admitted yes, but insisted the public had the right to know. Mid-presentation, Rosalind Carter unexpectedly arrived, stepping into the cafe. She wore a cool, composed expression. "Ms. Barnes," she said in a loud, disapproving tone, "what you're doing is reckless." The small crowd parted, tension thickening. Carter launched into damage control. These so-called expansions are standard mechanical sublevels. The cargo you see was typical emergency supply stock. DIA has no hidden bunkers. We regret Ms. Barnes trespassed. We'll be pressing charges for infiltration. But her voice trembled ever so slightly. Avery realised Carter's presence here indicated fear that the story might spiral. Avery calmly presented the official blueprint mismatches, the advanced security. She asked Carter directly, if it's standard, why the locked expansions, armed guards, references to Phase 2? Why are internal staff threatened into silence? Carter's jaw clenched. She repeated the scripted denial. The small group of reporters pressed her, demanding direct answers. Carter eventually retreated, tossing a final threat. "We'll speak more through official channels. DIA's attorneys will handle you." Then she left in a swirl of frustration. The coverage soared across local online outlets that day. While big media initially hesitated, the story gained traction on social media. Many watchers dismissed it as yet another conspiracy. but the photographic proof of new sublevels, the blueprint references, and the cameo audio of a hushed conversation stirred curiosity. Sizable segments of the public demanded official clarifications. Meanwhile, Avery tried again to contact Miguel to no avail. She worried he'd been silenced or fired. But she pressed forward, giving an interview to the Watchlight Chronicles, detailing how she discovered the expansions with help from an anonymous insider. At DIA, the official stance remained. No clandestine bunkers. Some older baggage tunnels might not be in active use. Yet hush-lipped rumours persisted among staff, some quietly confirming they recognised the photos. Anonymous tipsters emerged, claiming the construction they worked on extended far beyond typical needs, with specialised blast doors. The swirl of new claims overshadowed the official narrative. Dr. Ung weighed in publicly about the airport's time capsule and Masonic plaque, fueling the sense that a bigger puzzle lay beneath the iconic terminal. Meanwhile, sightings of Marcus Knight grew sporadic. Some said he was a high-level government contractor who oversaw security infrastructure. Others claimed he was part of a private consortium. No official record pinned him, fueling speculation. A few days later, rumours circulated that Knight had retreated from DIA or was seen boarding a hush flight. Carter refused to comment. A week later, after the dust settled somewhat, Avery found a small note in her motel mailbox. It read, "Thank you. I had to leave." She recognised it must be from Miguel, suggesting he escaped or went underground. Relief tempered by sadness. He'd risked everything. The note reaffirmed that real secrets were at play, not just an overblown rumour. She stashed it away, a reminder of the personal cost behind revelations. In the months to follow, partial investigations opened at city council levels. Some demanded more transparency on DIA's expansions. Official statements revealed minimal new revelations, but public pressure forced them to allow limited tours of certain sub-basements. Conspiracy watchers took to the net, devouring each new crumb. Meanwhile, Avery's story soared in alt-media circles, brandishing headlines like DIA bunkers exposed. Some mainstream outlets covered it neutrally. The general public remained divided between intrigue and skepticism. Avery, for her part, lingered in Denver a bit, writing follow-up pieces that wove the entire narrative. Murals, ominous sculptures, suspicious time capsules, hush expansions, Knight's cameo. She suspected the labyrinth below was far more extensive than official tours showed, but she'd achieved enough to confirm the existence of large restricted levels, advanced security, and a swirl of suspicious references to doomsday or a controlling power. In a final article, she asked readers to keep watchful. Though we forced partial disclosure, deeper shadows may remain under the terminal. Our best defence is open eyes and unrelenting questions. With that, Avery departed Denver. On her last day, she strolled by the terminal's shimmering tents, noticing passengers going about daily life, many oblivious to the drama beneath their feet. She found a quiet corner, gazing out at the runways that rumour said formed a swastika-like shape from above. Maybe just an odd design coincidence, or maybe part of a bigger design orchestrated by hidden powers. She let the question linger without a firm conclusion, accepting that some mysteries only half surfaced, their deeper layers forever locked behind sealed doors. In her final reflection, Avery recognised that conspiracies rarely unravel neatly. Some watchers might brand her revelations half-baked or sensational, yet she had done her due diligence, shining a spotlight on real expansions, forced official disclaimers, and unsettled powerful figures. That alone was a small victory. Leaning against a railing, she took a calming breath of the crisp Colorado air. The sun glinted on the distant snow-peaked mountains, a stark contrast to the labyrinth of secrets below. She whispered a silent thanks for not losing herself to the hush of intimidation. Then she grabbed her bag, heading for the main exit, leaving Denver International Airport behind, yet carrying forward the memory of corridors in the deep, flickering fluorescent lights, and a truth so big it rattled the complacent narrative. The horizon beckoned her next scoop, but this one would linger in her mind for a long while, the day she glimpsed the shadows under the terminal and dared to bring them into the light. Hello, fellow listeners and readers. Before we embark on this chilling journey, I'd like to welcome you to a special storytelling experience, one that blurs the lines between our recent history and a speculative future. But before we dive headfirst into the conspiracy, the thrills, and the hidden agendas, I have a small request. If you're tuning in right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are in the world and what time it is where you live. I'm always fascinated by how stories bring people together across time zones and continents. Also, if you find yourself intrigued, unsettled, or perhaps comforted by these midnight musings, don't forget to subscribe to Sleep Theories, where we explore stories that walk the razor's edge between dreams and reality. Tonight's tale is titled The Silent Strain, a Pandemic of Control. It's a conspiracy thriller set in the near future, 2027 to be exact, where a new respiratory virus, Havoc 7, has spread across the globe. At first, governments claim it's a natural outbreak, but as the body count rises and lockdowns stretch into indefinite detention, troubling evidence emerges that challenges the official story. We follow Ethan Cole, an investigative journalist who stumbles upon top-secret documents hinting at a darker, more orchestrated plan. This isn't just about a virus, it's about power, manipulation, and a hidden agenda that could reshape society forever. What if the lockdowns, the media blitz, and the vaccine mandates are not truly about stopping the spread, but about tightening control? Who stands to gain from a world locked behind digital passes and constant surveillance? And what becomes of those who speak out against the official narrative? In this story, the answers to these questions put Ethan Cole's life in jeopardy. He quickly learns that when fear runs high, those with something to hide will stop at nothing to maintain their hold on power. Accompanying Ethan on this dangerous road to the truth is Dr. Vanessa Lee, a brilliant virologist who once worked in the very labs rumoured to have spawned Havoc 7. She knows more than she's letting on, and her knowledge could be key to exposing a global conspiracy. Meanwhile, a hacker by the name of Dylan Novak lurks in the digital shadows, digging into corporate networks and government servers to reveal that the so-called vaccine might not be a cure at all, but rather a sophisticated tool of compliance. As you listen, consider how close to home this story might feel. It's not just about a virus. It's about how easily people can be steered by panic, how swiftly freedoms can be curtailed, and how disinformation shapes our world. In a reality where truth is so often censored or spun, is it possible that we're already on a path similar to the one described here? I invite you to settle in, whether it's early morning in a bustling city, midday in a sleepy town, or late at night in the comfort of your bed. Let this narrative guide you into the shadows of a world that may be only a step ahead of our own. Stay vigilant, keep an open mind, and remember, truths can be hidden in plain sight, but they can also be uncovered by those brave or desperate enough to seek them. Thank you for joining me. Now let's turn the page and begin the saga of The Silent Strain, a Pandemic of Control. And don't forget to comment where you're tuning in from, and hit that subscribe button for Sleep Theories. Sweet dreams, or perhaps unsettling ones, lie ahead. Ethan Cole first heard of Havoc 7 the same way most of the world did, through late-night breaking news. One evening, An emergency broadcast interrupted his usual flow of half-listened commentary and background chatter. A solemn news anchor announced a series of mysterious respiratory infections in Millstone, a modest city on the edge of the Atlantic. At first the anchor's tone was measured, almost casual. Then the numbers multiplied. Tens of cases grew to hundreds. The disease's symptoms were disturbing. Rapid onset fever, agonizing cough, and a sense of fatigue so overwhelming it left people bedridden within hours. The mortality rate, though low at first, showed signs of spiking among the elderly and immunocompromised. Lockdown orders quickly followed. From Washington to Berlin, from Tokyo to Sao Paulo, governments declared states of emergency. Curfews were enforced, public gatherings were banned. On social media, opinion wars erupted. Some claimed the virus was a hoax, invented by the media or politicians seeking to score points. Others insisted it was the end of the world, urging friends and family to stay locked inside for months. Caught in the swirl of rumour and confusion, Ethan didn't know what to believe. But as a dedicated investigative journalist, he made it his mission to find out. Armed with a notepad, a tape recorder, and the grit that had come from years of chasing leads, Ethan set out to gather facts. He interviewed local hospital staff, eyewitnesses, and any official who would speak on the record. What he found was a curious pattern. Wherever Havoc 7 was reported, swift government presence followed. Unmarked black vans, military checkpoints, blocked roads. The official line was that these measures were necessary to contain the virus. Yet it felt excessive, like they were sweeping in to hide something rather than to protect anyone. He pushed further, scouring data leaks on fringe conspiracy forums. After days of searching, a peculiar file landed in his inbox. A heavily redacted government document titled Project G7 Recursion. Nearly half of its contents were blacked out, but scattered phrases jumped out at him. Gain of function, accelerated release, population compliance threshold. That single page all but confirmed his growing suspicion. Havoc 7 might not be natural at all. A whistleblower known only as KC had attached a brief note. They're lying. Keep your eyes open. More to come. Ethan drafted an explosive article that night, detailing his findings. He noted the odd phrasing in the leaked document, speculated on the possibility of an engineered virus, and exposed the coordinated media campaign to vilify anyone who asked questions. The piece was set to publish on a small independent news site he sometimes freelanced for, one that prided itself on unfiltered reporting. But when he woke the next morning, the article was gone. The entire website had been wiped clean, replaced by an error message. His phone buzzed non-stop with calls from unknown numbers. Each time he answered, the line was silent. Then the call stopped, just as abruptly as they had begun. A creeping sense of dread unfurled in his chest. If someone had gone to the trouble of erasing his work, that meant there was truth in it. He worried for the safety of his source, the whistleblower known as KC. Repeated attempts to contact them returned nothing but dead ends. Meanwhile, hashtags referencing Havoc 7's suspicious origins vanished from major social platforms. Accounts that questioned the official narrative were suspended. Clips that cast doubt on the virus's natural origin disappeared. Almost overnight, it became taboo to even hint that Havoc 7 might be man-made. Then came the official statement from the Global Health Initiative, GHI, a coalition of government and corporate medical authorities. The GHI insisted the virus was a tragic but natural mutation, emphasizing that disinformation would only worsen the global crisis. They promised that a vaccine was in the works and would be rolled out soon. Ethan's stomach churned as he listened to government spokespeople calmly dismiss every legitimate question as paranoia or fear-mongering. The mood in the streets and on the news was tense and anxious, yet also resigned. Many people simply wanted to believe that their leaders had things under control. Ethan, however, could not look away from what he had uncovered. If the virus was truly engineered, why? And by whom? The mission statement of the GHI read like a philanthropic crusade, uniting nations to protect global health. But Ethan sensed a hidden iron fist behind the velvet glove. If the official story was a lie, how deep did that lie go? Desperate for clarity, he reached out to every contact he had. Most refused to speak, citing fear of losing their jobs or, worse, ending up on the disappeared list, rumoured detainees who vanished once they questioned official accounts. A few unnamed sources hinted that the GHI had ties to an elite circle of pharmaceutical conglomerates and high-ranking politicians, but these hints were vague, whispers on digital wind. Then, without warning, a simple message arrived in Ethan's email. I was there when Havoc 7 was made. I can prove everything. Meet me at the old water treatment plant Tuesday at midnight. V. Lee. The old water treatment plant on the outskirts of Millstone was a relic of 20th century infrastructure, its rusted pipes and battered walls long decommissioned and forgotten. Arriving just before midnight, Ethan slipped through a chain-link fence and used his phone's flashlight to navigate the labyrinth of dark corridors and stagnant puddles. Every metallic clang made him jump. The hollow echo of his own footsteps heightened his paranoia. The world outside was in shambles, but here, in this abandoned husk of a facility, Ethan found something almost post-apocalyptic in the gloom. At last he reached a dimly lit open area cluttered with empty crates and broken machinery. Standing by a flickering fluorescent light was a woman in a hooded coat, her posture rigid, her gaze fixed on him. She pulled back the hood to reveal a tired yet resolute face. "I'm Dr. Vanessa Lee," she said, voice hushed. "Are you alone?" Ethan glanced over his shoulder, scanning the darkness. "Yes, for now," she nodded, then wasted no time. "I saw your unpublished article about Havoc 7's origins. I know it was taken down, but the details are correct enough. I used to work for the Global Health Initiative. I was part of the team that created it." Ethan's heart pounded. Hearing it stated so plainly, so matter-of-factly, knocked the wind out of him. "Wait, you're saying you engineered Havoc 7? "No," she corrected. "I was on the research team. We were studying coronaviruses, influenza, other potential threats. Gain-of-function research, they called it. The official story was that we wanted to preempt deadly outbreaks to develop rapid response treatments. But behind closed doors, the conversation was darker. They were discussing weaponization, minimal lethal doses, how to maximize contagion without triggering immediate global alarm." She took a shaky breath. "I didn't realize how far it had gone until I saw the classified data, H7 recursion. I confronted my superiors. The next day, I was locked out of the labs. My access was revoked. Then I found a threatening note pinned to my apartment door. I had no choice but to vanish." Ethan tried to process the flood of information. "So Havoc 7 was leaked on purpose?" Lee's eyes were clouded with regret. "All signs point to an early release. The official plan was to unleash it in staged outbreaks, to test how populations respond to fear, see how easily we could corral them under new restrictions, but something or someone pushed the schedule forward. It caught even the top brass off guard. Now they're scrambling to maintain control. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. He imagined entire governments coordinating behind the scenes, planning the perfect crisis to ensure absolute compliance. Why would they want to do that? Lee gave a grim smile. Control, power, profits, you name it. Once a population is scared, they become pliable. They accept anything: digital tracking, forced vaccinations, mandatory checkpoints if it promises safety. The GHI might have begun as a genuine health alliance, but it's evolved into something monstrous. Politicians, corporations, pharmaceutical CEOs, they're all complicit. Ethan pressed record on his phone. I need you to go on the record. The world has to hear this. She shook her head vehemently. Not yet. If I show my face, I'll be dead or disappeared. The GHI has eyes everywhere, but I can give you evidence. Encrypted files, lab notes, internal memos. You can release them when the time is right. Cautious but determined, Ethan wanted a taste of that proof right away. Dr. Lee handed him a small flash drive. This is just a fraction of what I have. Detailed gene sequences showing unnatural splicing. Internal emails discussing the time frame for the release. It's enough to cast serious doubt on the official narrative. But be careful. If they've gone to such lengths to silence you before, they'll do worse once you have this. Ethan pocketed the drive, his mind buzzing with questions. Why talk to me? I'm just an independent journalist with a half-banned blog, she shrugged. You're also the only one stubborn enough to keep digging when the entire media establishment shut you down. My old colleagues are either too scared or too loyal to speak. You have just enough of a following to make a ripple, but not so large that you're constantly watched. Not until now. Her words sank in. He realised tonight's meeting had placed both of them on a precarious tightrope. What's your plan? He asked. I've been on the run for months, Lee said softly. Collecting evidence, trying to figure out how to expose this. I can't do it alone. I need help, resources, a network. Her expression hardened. This is bigger than just me or you. If Havoc 7 is only the first step, I fear what comes next could be far more sinister. Before Ethan could respond, a mechanical drone whirred above them. Startled, they extinguished the light and pressed against the wall. The faint glow of red tracking beams swept across the floor like an alien search party. It lingered for a moment before zipping off into the night. Dr. Lee exhaled with palpable relief. They're searching, she whispered. We should leave separately. If you need me, message me through the secure link I gave you. They shared a final urgent glance, then Dr. Lee disappeared into the darkness. Ethan stood there, alone, the flash drive feeling like a brick in his pocket. His mind raced with visions of clandestine labs, empty corridors and menacing government agents. The stakes had grown impossibly high. If Dr. Lee was telling the truth, then entire nations were being manipulated into a permanent state of lockdown and fear. Ethan flicked off his phone's flashlight and followed a narrow corridor back to the fence. Every shadow seemed hostile, every rustle a potential threat. By the time he reached his car, his breath came in shallow gasps. He caught his reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes wide, cheeks taut. He knew it then. He wasn't chasing a mere conspiracy theory. He was stepping into a battlefield of secrets. And if the GHI had begun manufacturing viruses and orchestrating